Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Get the lottery system at the beginning of the game. Chapter 21. New York City, Bloodline Manor. After Serena left the arsenal angrily, Claiborne immediately chased after her, grabbed Serena, and stopped her. Craven, what are you doing? You don't want me to investigate, why don't you let me go? Serena looked at Craven with a look of disgust, feeling that this conspirator made her hate him, so he didn't want to stay by Craven's side for even a moment. No, it's just that the attack on the subway station is full of doubts. Now report the situation to me in detail, maybe I will send someone out to investigate. Craven said gloomily that he stopped Serena not for fun, but because he was afraid of whether there were variables that affected his plan to cooperate with the werewolf. Yes, Craven is a traitor. At the beginning, he reached a cooperation with Lucian and wanted to completely control the Blood Clan. Now that the plan has reached a critical moment, it is naturally impossible for him to give up. In an instant, Serena's eyes lit up, she hesitated for a moment, and then told what happened in the subway station, even Tang Tian's identity as an investigator of the Shield and the fact that the werewolf was tracking a human named Michael speak up. By the way, even when Michael left the address, Selena said it out unsuspectingly, as if she felt that Craven would not just sit back and watch the Blood Clan decline. So, I think the werewolf must have a conspiracy. If humans don't have a special effect on them, then it's impossible for them to catch them. Serena analyzed carefully, staring into Craven's eyes, waiting for his response. Okay, it does look suspicious, don't worry, I will send Jim and 20 Death Walkers to investigate, please rest assured, I will handle it well. Craven smiled and said, the cold light in his eyes kept showing, it looked like he was hiding a knife in his smile. In fact, he had already heard Lucian say the name Michael, and the other party warned him not to care about this matter, so that the werewolf could successfully obtain Michael's blood. In this regard, Craven followed Lucian's order and didn't bother with this matter, but he didn't expect that the investigators from S.H.I.E.L.D. would intervene, which gave Craven the urge to get rid of him as soon as possible. No, that man is really too strong. Ordinary werewolves can only be killed instantly in his hands. I guess the Death Walker is not much better. Can you let me lead the team? Serena said pleadingly, looking at Craven anxiously, trying to get him to agree to her plan. Hee, you are too great for a small blood race, so leave this matter to me. Hurry up and prepare for the arrival of Amelia's envoy. Unexpectedly, in the face of Serena's worry, Craven waved his hand, turned and left impatiently, and in the process of leaving, he exuded a strong killing intent. After understanding the cause and effect, Craven's eyes were also full of indifference. He went to his room and closed the door, thinking about his current situation. After thinking about it, Serena is a huge variable. The other party did not succumb to him, but discovered the secret of the werewolf. In order to prevent Serena from knowing more, Craven must preemptively strike. Jim, come in. Claiborne hesitated for a moment, then called softly to the door. Crack. Hearing the sound, the outer door opened, and a strong blood warrior appeared in front of Craven. What do I need to do? Lord Craven, Jim said respectfully, waiting for Craven's order. As soon as the words fell, Craven took out a business card, which was exactly where Michael lived. When he took out the business card, Craven pointed to the business card in front of him, and spoke indifferently. There are 2 humans living at this address. The Asian man was killed directly, and the other was seriously injured, preventing him from escaping. This is my order. Craven patted his business card, and gave Jim a firm order, with an unquestionable meaning in it. Understood, Lord Craven, I will act immediately. Jim didn't talk nonsense, took the business card, and was ready to solve the operation this time. Looking at Jim's disappearing back, the smile on Craven's face became more intense. In this way, Serena would not have any clues, and it would be smoother for her to completely control the Blood Clan. Half an hour later, Jim organized a group of Death Walkers, and the car they took went to Michael's apartment and accelerated. It didn't take long for them to arrive at their destination. After getting off the car, the group of Death Walkers led by Jim came to a location not far from the apartment. At this time, in the room, Tang Tian picked up a cup of coffee and drank it unhurriedly. After using chakra and perceiving the situation outside, a smile appeared on his face. Seeing the smile on Tang Tian's face, Michael's expression was very puzzled. He walked over quickly, stared into his eyes, and asked curiously, "Mr. Tang Tian, what's the matter? Could it be that someone is here?" Michael didn't know why, but he could feel that the hurried footsteps outside seemed to be getting closer and closer to them, and it might take a minute to reach their house. "That's good, and you're still a not-so-friendly guest." After Tang Tian said this, Michael's face changed, and he had a premonition of a bad possibility. Thinking of the possible werewolves that might appear, his heart was filled with worry. As soon as he finished speaking, the door was kicked open, and Jim, the leader, walked in with 3 death walkers with a murderous look on his face. Looking at Michael, who was drinking coffee and trembling, Jim asked in a questioning tone, "Is this Michael's home?" At this moment, facing the pressure on the other party, Michael's face became extremely pale, and now he is a little afraid to speak. Looking at these guys, they may not be good people. "That's right, he's Michael. You can call me Tang Tian. What are you doing here? I don't think anyone should disturb me in this place." Tang Tian looked at them indifferently, as a warning to them. If they didn't have a long memory, no wonder he was to blame. "Unfortunately, the order we received is that you must die. This is the order of our blood clan leader, Mr. Craven, please die obediently." After Jim finished speaking, 20 death walkers outside the door quickly rushed in from the outside, drew their pistols and surrounded them, intending to kill them if they disagreed. Looking at Jim's movements, Tang Tian's face didn't change at all. He wasn't frightened. It's completely impossible for 20 death walkers to deal with him. New York City, Michael's home. When Jim led a large number of death walkers and wanted to silence Tang Tian, Michael was very nervous and a little scared, but seeing Tang Tian's calm and composed appearance, his mood recovered temporarily. Facing the 20 black muzzles of guns, Tang Tian remained calm and calm. Such ignorance and disdain made Jim's killing intent increase several times. After thinking about it, Jim directly pressed the trigger, wanting to teach Tang Tian a lesson, so he aimed at the thigh and pressed the trigger without hesitation. As a result, the bullet was held within 3 meters of Tang Tian by a strange force, without hurting even a single hair on him. Shot. Looking at such a strange scene, Jim was startled, and without hesitation, he ordered his subordinates to shoot directly. In an instant, countless bullets turned into a metal storm, and hit Tang Tian's position. It seemed that if he didn't stop him, he would definitely be torn to pieces. Michael closed his eyes in despair, not daring to look at the bullets, praying for the arrival of the gods to help him resolve the crisis. At the critical moment, a red figure appeared in front of Tang Tian's eyes. 2 cold lights flashed by, and the densely packed bullets were directly bounced off. Ding Qing took a look, and saw a man wearing a red tights and carrying 2 double knives appeared in front of their eyes, and he still had a cheap feeling all over his body. "Deadpool, you are late. I asked you to deliver something, but you are so slow." Looking at the Deadpool in front of him, Tang Tian also had a strange expression on his face, and he did not forget to say it jokingly. "Sorry, boss, Dr. Connors stopped me and chatted for a while, so I'm a little late." Deadpool scratched his head in embarrassment, a little afraid to look Tang Tian in the eye. Not far away, Jim looked at the intruding Deadpool with a dull expression, thinking of the mercenary who was always active in the dark. They were frightened for a while. Basically, in Jim's impression, this mercenary is very powerful, and even relying on the power of the Death Walker, it is estimated that he cannot deal with this guy. "Okay, since we're here, let's get rid of these guys. Collect their blood and do research in the future." Tang Tian made a gesture of wiping his neck with an indifferent expression, as if killing them all. "Understood, boss." Deadpool nodded without hesitation. The bloodthirsty dual knives exuded an extremely cold aura under the light. After all, Tang Tian would never let those who dared to assassinate him live. Killing them all was an indispensable choice. Tang Tian just wanted to let Craven know that he was not someone who could be easily manipulated if he wanted to. Not good. At this time, Jim, who felt that something was wrong, raised his gun again, trying to kill Deadpool by virtue of his numerical advantage. As a result, another cold light flashed across, and Jim's hand flew out and landed on the ground, causing Jim to feel excruciating pain. Before he could react, another knife pierced his heart. After clearing up Jim neatly, Deadpool took advantage of the victory to pursue, and cleared out several other Death Walkers neatly, and finally completed the task of protecting Tang Tian. "Phew, it's finally solved," Boss, don't forget my bonus. When Deadpool dealt with these Deathwalkers, he said with a smile on his face, still with a mean expression on his face. No problem, but I'm curious, what material is your knife made of? The wounds of the Blood Clan can't heal themselves. Tang Tian nodded, staring at the silver-white swords in Deadpool's hands, showing a slightly interested expression. Hee, my knife is made of a special material that can reverse the self-healing factor, so even if the vampire has a relatively strong self-healing ability, it will be restrained by my weapon. Deadpool said proudly that this knife was specially made to deal with Wolverine, so Deadpool has reason to be proud. Very good, Deadpool, you did a good job this time. But the battle is far from over. Let's just keep waiting, and the werewolf should be next. Tang Tian snapped his fingers, and all the blood race corpses on the ground disappeared, except for the dried blood on the ground, as if nothing had happened. After collecting the corpses of these Deathwalkers, Tang Tian was in a good mood. In this way, with the Blood Clan and werewolves under complete control, he could cultivate his own super warrior army on a large scale. On the other side, in the sleeping place of the Blood Manor, Serena knelt at the place where the elder Victor was sleeping, and made a gesture of prayer. Thinking of the many conflicts within the Blood Clan, and that Kraven is a mediocre person, plus, the possible conspiracy of the werewolves and the attention from humans all made Serena feel a little unbearable. Suddenly, when Serena was feeling uncomfortable, a blonde beauty walked over, looking at Serena who was silently praying, showing inexplicable emotions. Haha, Serena, nothing can be changed by just praying. You must take practical actions. The blonde beauty stared at Serena, looking at her meaningfully, as if giving him advice. Erica, what can you do? Kraven, I always feel that he is hiding something from me, and it always makes me feel extremely disgusted to have him around. Serena shook her head. She always felt that Kraven was very annoying, and he said the result of the matter himself, but his expression was extraordinarily weird. All these made Serena extremely uncomfortable, and her mood became a little uncomfortable. She couldn't help but told her friend Erica what was in her heart. That is, becoming Kraven's woman, this is the only way. In this way, what do you want to do? Kraven will agree, after all, you are the second generation of blood. Erica persuaded, hoping that Serena would agree to her request. No, it's absolutely impossible. That guy Kraven is a despicable person. And I'm a fighter, that's why I disagree. Let's not talk about it. Serena said seriously, not as if she was joking. Okay then, I've said that, so I won't say anything more. Erica responded helplessly that she felt that her sister was too stubborn, which may be what attracted Kraven. Compared to this, I am most concerned about the man at the subway station. He has power beyond vampires and werewolves, and we cannot underestimate him. Serena said seriously, and Erica just shook her head helplessly, with an expression of disbelief. You know, in her mind, human beings can only be regarded as food at best, and it is simply a fantasy to surpass blood clans and werewolves in strength. At night, outside Serena's room, Kraven held an aristocratic dress with a smile on his face, opened the door and walked in. As soon as he opened the door, Kraven found Serena sitting quietly on the side, thinking about something. When he came in, Serena just glanced at him casually and completely ignored him, thought up. Hi, Serena, this is the dress I personally prepared for you, you want to put it on. Waiting for Amelia's envoys to arrive, how about we warmly welcome them? Kraven handed over the dress with anticipation, wanting Serena to change into this dress. Unexpectedly, just as he stretched out his hand, Serena patted his hand, refusing to accept the dress, with the coldness of repelling people thousands of miles away still hanging on her face. Sorry, I have something important to do. I don't have time to meet with the mission yet. You can handle it yourself. I'm a soldier, so I can't participate in boring activities. Serena said sternly, without any politeness at all, and didn't care whether Kraven was in power or not. In fact, the structure of the blood race is very four-tiered, namely the three elders at the top of the pyramid, the upper-level rulers, the middle-level deathwalkers, and the bottom-level ordinary blood races, which together build a stable order for the blood race. Since Serena is a direct descendant of Great Elder Victor, the rights she possesses are inherently no worse than those in power of the blood race, so this is also the reason why Kraven wants to make Serena his own woman. At least, with the identity of Serena, it will be more convenient for him to control the Blood Clan. Even if he loses the 3 elders, he can rule the Blood Clan forever. Serena, wait a minute, it's better to go to the ball with me. I will prove to the whole blood race that you are my woman, and in this way, you can get the right. Craven said impatiently, hoping that Serena would agree to his request, and share the rights in his hands with her. I refuse. The most important thing now is to protect the blood race. I can't be like you without a sense of crisis. Serena shook her head, and was about to turn around and leave. In her opinion, it would be better to leave if she didn't plan to talk to this villain. Facing Serena's lack of face, Craven was furious, and quickly knocked over the vase next to him. When the vase fell to the ground, Serena stopped slightly, with a surprised expression on her face. Why, I want to pursue you so much, but you still don't give me face. Anyway, no matter what, I order you as the ruler of the Blood Clan, put on your dress later, and come with me to meet Amelia. Mission. After saying this, Craven left directly, with an angry expression on his face, as if he was a little bit annoyed by Serena. Soon, when he returned to his room, Craven was still a little angry and in a bad mood, so he was very angry. Crunch. Suddenly, the door was suddenly opened, and a Death Walker of the blood race came over in a hurry, with a panic expression on his face. It was obvious that something had happened. What's the matter? Why are you in such a panic? Craven asked grumpily. He always felt that there were too many things going on recently, but they were all bad things. It's no good, Lord Craven, the entire army of 20 Death Walkers has been wiped out. After coming here, the Blood Warrior said with some fear. What? Craven was startled and had a bad premonition, but it was too late to say anything now, and he seemed to have offended someone who shouldn't be offended. However, now is not the time to take care of this matter. We can only wait until the Amelia mission leaves before making other plans. 2 hours later, in the Vampire Manor, Craven was urgently preparing for work, and he didn't have time to take care of Tang Tian's problems. Moreover, in order to welcome the Amelia mission, vampire nobles from all over the world rushed here as quickly as possible, preparing to participate in the important ceremony of awakening the next Elder Marcus. When the mission arrived, Craven's dance venue had already been arranged, and everything was arranged in an orderly manner, which made the vampire nobles who came here very satisfied, even the elder Amelia. Maybe we are divided by the ocean, but we are all blood, the king of the night. There are still 2 days before the next Elder Marcus is awakened. Please, Elder Amelia, enjoy life during this time. Craven said complacently, full of respect for Elder Amelia. Very well, as the person in power, you are the best. I will also recommend you as the next person in power. Amelia praised and said that she still sees the efforts made by Craven in front of her. After chatting with the mission for a while, Erica came directly to Craven and whispered in his ear. Selena is no longer in the room, and he left a note saying that he will investigate himself. Erica reluctantly took out the note, and handed it directly to Craven in front of him. This woman didn't read my order. Craven looked at the handwriting on this note, with strong anger showing on his face. At the same time, on the main road outside the Blood Manor, Serena was driving alone, and quickly accelerated towards the place where Michael lived. I hope it's all in time. Craven, is that guy a pig? He actually sent someone to kill that man. While driving, Serena's face was not very good looking. She had calculated thousands of times, but she failed to count the people sent by Craven. Instead of investigating, she went to kill them instead. These clues were all told by Serena's friend Khan, so the moment she knew the news, Serena put down her dress and rushed towards the place where Michael lived. At the same time, Serena became more and more curious when thinking of the human being who could easily deal with 2 werewolves. For example, if it is an official organization of human beings, then people will naturally be sent to investigate, but it is absolutely impossible that there will be only 2, and it is more likely that there will be a large group of agents and police. For a long time, vampires and werewolves have been human officials, and well water does not interfere with river water. Even if there are some crises, there will be a pair of invisible hands to wipe them away. Apart from these troubles, Serena feels strange about them. Therefore, Tang Tian's real purpose needs to be investigated carefully by him. As long as he rushes over to ask about the situation, he should be able to get the answer she wants. What Serena didn't know was that her arrival had already been planned by Tang Tian, and she would be drawn in by him soon and become Tang Tian's new subordinate. Outside Michael's apartment, a car stopped slowly, and Serena walked out of it, with an extremely serious expression, and slowly approached with 2 guns in hand. When she was less than 5 meters away from the gate, Serena smelled a strong smell of blood, which looked like the blood of a vampire, not a human. After realizing that things were a little troublesome, Serena immediately became vigilant, opened the door handle with her arm, pushed the door open and walked in. Creak. With a sound, the door of the apartment was opened, and Serena saw a shocking scene, that is, Tang Tian and Michael, who thought that something unexpected happened, were actually playing cards. As for Deadpool, who was his bodyguard, he picked up a rag and cleaned up the blood on the ground, as if he was cleaning up the traces of the battle. Hey, it's this woman again. Michael was startled, he had no thought of playing cards at all, and his hands became trembling. Because they met a few hours ago, and Michael knew very well that this woman was ruthless, so he had to be careful when dealing with her. Relax, Michael, if she were the enemy, she would have turned into a corpse by now, so please rest assured. Tang Tian explained calmly, put down the cards in his hand, and said comfortingly. To this, Michael could only nod with a wry smile. In less than a day, Michael felt that his life had changed. Not only did he meet the legendary vampires and werewolves, even the popular superheroes. Scene. Sit down. I think you must have your own purpose in coming to us. If you don't mind, I can answer some things to you. Tang Tian stretched out his hand, acting extraordinarily generous, staring at Serena in front of him, and said unhurriedly. After hearing Tang Tian's words, Serena sat aside without hesitation, thought about it, and asked straight to the point. I was afraid of your death at first, but now I see it in the hands of the Death Walker. There is no need to worry about your safety at all. Serena sighed helplessly. She miscalculated Tang Tian's strength, which surprised her. It seemed that she had always underestimated human beings. It's nothing, it's just a group of vampires. It's absolutely impossible to kill me. Tang Tian shook his head, with a contemptuous expression in his eyes. He didn't take this matter to heart at all, as if those blood races were like ants. By the way, tell me now, why Michael was targeted by the werewolves, and what your real purpose is. I need to know all of these. Serena stared into Tang Tian's eyes, ready to learn something she didn't know. In theory, the reason why the werewolf was looking for Michael is worth pondering, so Serena must understand the important reason why the werewolf was looking for him. Alexander Corvinus, a Hungarian, a warlord in the 5th century, had a plague in his village one day, and the whole village died except him. Only Alexander survived, and his body's genes mutated. Alexander, who survived, later discovered that his genes can transform any disease and virus into vitality, so he became the first undead. Tang Tian looked at Serena and explained in detail. The origin of the birth of the vampires and werewolves made Serena very strange and felt a little unclear. Alexander, I have never heard of this name, but what does it have to do with your purpose? Serena felt puzzled and couldn't help asking. Of course there is concern, because of Alexander's 3 sons, 2 of them are the ancestors of the vampires and werewolves respectively. Among them, the ancestor of the vampires is called Marcus, and the ancestor of the werewolves is called William. As for the descendant of the other child is Michael, so the werewolf wants to obtain Michael's blood and reintegrate the vampires, so as to establish a new race and overthrow the rule of the vampires. When Tang Tian said this, he didn't say much, leaving Serena a little room for imagination, let her figure out what the real purpose of the werewolf was. After thinking about it carefully, Serena's face was extremely ugly, but she felt that there was something wrong with what Tang Tian said. You're wrong, the ancestor is Victor, it can't be Marcus. Serena shook her head, retorting. That's what you say, right? Anyway, the facts are in front of you, and you'll know the answer before long. Tang Tianlin explained, leaned on the sofa, closed his eyes comfortably and meditated. Seeing Tang Tian's disdain to explain, Serena felt very annoyed, but she felt a little helpless. She couldn't beat the opponent by herself, and it was impossible for her to be stronger than him, so she could only look at him bitterly. After talking for so long, what is your real purpose? I feel that you came on purpose to attract me. Serena frowned, always feeling that everything was within Tang Tian's predictions, and she was being manipulated like a flag. Suddenly, Tang Tian, who had closed his eyes to rest his mind, suddenly opened his eyes, with a faint smile on his face, and slowly glanced at Serena. Wow, boss, don't you fall in love with this woman? Deadpool, who had been mopping the floor for a long time, ran over quickly, stood in front of Tang Tian, and said nonsense. Noisy. As a result, as soon as he finished speaking, Tang Tian punched Deadpool flying with his fist with the power of lightning, causing him to slam into the wall fiercely. Looking at this scene, Michael, who was about to interrupt, closed his mouth again, feeling a little scared in his heart. Looking at Tang Tian in front of him, he was afraid that he would be severely punished by this terrifying guy in front of him. My real purpose is very simple, to recruit you and control the vampires and werewolves. This is my purpose, and I also understand that you can help me. Tang Tian's face was calm, as if he was narrating that he couldn't do normal things normally, which made Serena stunned. Immediately, Serena showed a disdainful expression on her face, and said in a mocking tone, "You are crazy. Why do you think that I will take refuge in you?" Serena felt that this man was crazy, and she wanted to recruit him and rule the vampires and werewolves. This was simply a fantasy, and he didn't know what to say. Hee, you will agree. I can help you find the murderer who killed your whole family. As a reward, you must become my subordinate. Tang Tian said seriously, staring into Serena's eyes, and continued, "So, Serena, do you want revenge?" In the apartment, Serena looked at Tang Tian with disdain, not believing that he could control the vampires and werewolves. However, when talking about the murderer who killed her family, Serena's expression changed. Originally, Serena, who was acting kindly, immediately took out a pistol from her waist, eyes full of killing intent, and suddenly pressed the trigger on Tang Tian. Bang bang bang. Facing the close-range gunshots, Tang Tian remained extremely calm. Using the magnetic field control, he completely stopped the bullet and threw it against the wall. After dispelling Serena's sudden attack, Tang Tian opened Sharingan, and the bound illusion was activated by himself, and Serena was directly fixed by him, unable to move at all. Taking advantage of Serena's inability to move, Deadpool also moved in an instant, and put the sword on Serena's neck, and it was very possible to kill her if there was a disagreement. Victor has already avenged my parents for me. You are not allowed to mention this matter again, or I will kill you if I try my best. Serena gave Tang Tian a vicious look, and said sternly to him. For Serena, the death of all her family members when she was a child is an eternal pain in her heart. Regarding this, Serena has always disliked other people mentioning this matter, so this scene happened just now. I advise you to shut up, or my knife will be rude. Facing the angry Serena, Deadpool said in an extremely indifferent tone. However, Serena's attitude didn't seem to have changed, and she still looked at Tang Tian with a kind of hatred. Not far away, Michael became nervous when he saw such a tense appearance. After hesitating for a while, he still said to Serena, "Miss Serena, why don't you listen to what Mr. Tang Tian said? I don't think Mr. Tang Tian will lie. You might as well listen to the reason." Michael persuaded, he didn't want such a beautiful woman like Serena to die like this. Hee, you're smart, Michael. It's just that this woman has been dazzled by anger, so it's not certain whether she will listen to my explanation. Looking at Michael, Tang Tian stared at Serena Chowli's face and said meaningfully. Sure enough, whether it was influenced by Tang Tian's words, Serena finally calmed down, and looked at Tang Tian again with questioning eyes, as if waiting for an explanation from him. Then tell me who killed my family and why. Serena questioned and said. Tang Tian also waved to Deadpool, telling him to put down the knife in his hand. Hearing this, Deadpool put down the knife according to the order, but still stood where he was, for fear that Serena would hurt her boss. Victor, the murderer is Victor. Tang Tian thought for a while, then said the name that shocked Serena, and continued, because you look very much like Victor's former daughter. Back then, the werewolf leader Lucian fell in love with Victor's daughter, causing Victor to be furious, and finally his daughter was put into the sun and turned into ashes before Lucian's eyes, so he naturally needed to find a substitute. Moreover, he had high requirements for this substitute, that is perfection to carry out his orders, a weapon without emotion. After Tang Tian finished his reasoning slowly, Selena had already believed it in her heart. All signs also showed that Victor was very likely to do so. Besides, Thinking that I saw a painting similar to myself in Victor's room, it seemed that all of this made sense. Besides, Tang Tian had absolutely no reason to lie to her, so this made Serena very happy, and even a little hard to accept. Becoming the pawn of the enemy, there is nothing more uncomfortable than this. For a moment, Serena's expression was extremely blank. Thinking of this possibility, she no longer knows the future, so what should she do? After thinking about it, Serena hesitated for a moment, and then said again, "But, this is just your guess, what if it is not the case? Maybe Victor just wants to accept me as his daughter, and my family is not what did he kill. Maybe, but Lucian will be here soon. When I catch him, he will tell you everything," Tang Tian said indifferently, which completely relieved Serena. "Okay, then I promise you too. If you are right, then I will agree to any request you ask, even if it is to become your subordinate and help you manage the blood race." Serena thought about it, and finally agreed to Tang Tian's request. Anyway, she had no choice. "Very good, you made a smart choice. Only absolute strength can realize any wish, and I will lead you to welcome the arrival of a new era," Tang Tian said to Serena confidently. Serena also did not speak, but quietly waited. The future is not the era of these dark creatures, but the era of superheroes. For this reason, Tang Tian doesn't mind conquering these two dark races and becoming a pawn in the battle for hegemony in the Marvel world. On the other side, in front of a werewolf lair in New York City, Lucian gathered more than 30 werewolves and gathered together, preparing to raid the place where Michael lived. Even outside the lair, there were 5 cars, and even a lot of army green boxes were filled with brand new MP5s and ultraviolet bullets to restrain the vampires. It seems that the werewolf side has already made preparations, waiting for a strong attack to make the werewolf race rise completely. "Compatriots, we have been ruled by the blood race for centuries, and now it's time for us to fight back. So, grab Michael with all your strength and get his blood. Let the werewolf rise completely." At the door of the werewolf's lair, Lucian stood in front of the group of werewolves and gave a loud speech. Ouch! All of a sudden, countless werewolves transformed and howled, making the entire night sky look extraordinarily terrifying. As the 3rd generation of werewolves, Lucian has a very strong combat power. Generally speaking, the strength of a single body is stronger than that of Spider-Man, and even the Lizardman can't match his strength. It's hard to imagine what the entire New York City would look like without the stable environment ruled by the Blood Clan, but what Lucian didn't know was that after the mantis stalking the cicada and the oriole, someone was ready to deal with them. "Lord Lucian, we have finished monitoring Michael's side. There is only one blood race Death Walker and one human being there. There is no one else. We can leave at any time." One of the werewolves looked at Lucian respectfully and said, "Very good. All ready to go." Lucian waved his hand, looked at the dark night sky, and said in a nostalgic tone, "Wait. Sophia, I will avenge you. Completely destroy the blood race." Outside Michael's apartment in New York City, 5 cars suddenly came to the open space outside the apartment in the early hours of the morning, stopped the car, and came out of it 30 men with ferocious looks. The leader was Lucian. After his arrival, the werewolf who stayed here to investigate would also report the situation inside, which made Lucian feel relieved. As long as Michael is still in this room, they can go inside to arrest and lead the werewolf to rise. "Lord Lucian, Michael and the others are inside, should we arrest them immediately?" Many werewolves stared into the eyes of the leader, waiting for his words before starting to act. You must know that the cohesion of werewolves is stronger than that of vampires in some respects. In the worldview where werewolves respect the strong, serving the strong is their inevitable choice. Of course, Michael tried his best to keep alive. As for the human and blood race, kill them directly. Lucian said indifferently with his eyes. Apart from Michael being the most important thing, nothing else was of any use to him. Yes, the werewolves who received the order scattered towards Michael's apartment and immediately surrounded them, trying to capture their target alive. On the other side, in the room, Tang Tian drank coffee calmly, and Deadpool stood beside him. Michael on the other side had already felt like he was falling asleep, and his 2 eyelids were constantly fighting, like as if about to fall asleep. Only Serena, who was a blood race, was still sitting on the sofa, recalling what Tang Tian said, and placed the 2 guns on the table, waiting for the arrival of the werewolves. "Are you sure the werewolf will really come?" After waiting for a while, Serena couldn't help asking, always feeling like this, Tang Tian seemed to be more indifferent than expected. It's not whether it will come, it's already here. Listen. Tang Tian pointed to the position of the ceiling and smiled softly. Ho 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 ho. Gotcha, gotcha. In an instant, as soon as Tang Tian finished speaking, there was a violent collision on the ceiling, and the howling of the werewolf resounded throughout the entire apartment. Moreover, there were hurried footsteps at the thin gate outside, and it was obvious that werewolves attacked from all directions and surrounded them. At this time, Michael also came to his senses, looking at the distance at a loss, while Deadpool drew his 2 knives, ready to meet the enemy at any time. Hee, a rare attack, just let me stretch my muscles. Facing werewolves running from all directions, Tang Tian didn't feel any despair at all. Instead, he raised his head and looked around with a smile on his face. Bang bang bang. It's a pity that Serena didn't have such a psychological quality. When the werewolf started to attack, she drew out her pistol and launched an attack on the ceiling. Deadpool also didn't move slowly. He arrived at the door in an instant, and pierced the paw of the werewolf who had just tore open the door with a knife. Not long after, the werewolf's screams came from everywhere, but instead, it aroused the ferocious nature of the werewolf, destroying the ceiling even faster, and falling directly down. Looking at the scene in front of her, Serena knew that it was too late, and the best choice was to stick to the defense here and find a chance to leave this place. At the critical moment, Tang Tian stood in front of Serena, his face still bland, as if nothing could disturb his emotions. Get out of the way, let me protect you to retreat. Serena said seriously, she has made up her mind to protect these people. No need, it's just a bunch of werewolves. Serena and Deadpool, you all stand down. Tang Tian waved his hand and gave the order. What? Serena looked at Tang Tian in disbelief, as if she hadn't expected that the other party would say such a thing. Facing Serena's astonishment, Tang Tian didn't explain anything. His eyes turned into kaleidoscope Sharingans, and he looked at the werewolf on the side, his eyes full of contempt. Susano. Before the werewolf arrived, the chakra on Tang Tian's body boiled crazily, and a dark blue energy skull with a height of more than 2 meters was formed directly. Not only that, this huge energy skeleton, after being injected with more chakra, the blue flesh began to grow crazily, and gradually changed into a set of armor, a circular shield and a burning blue fire great sword. 10-fist sword and 8-foot mirror. This is an artifact possessed by Tang Tianxuanengu. After arousing this power, the powerful air wave shocked the werewolves who had just rushed in a few steps back, and made these werewolves feel a kind of strong smell of death. Obviously, this kind of power is not just ordinary power, it surpasses werewolves and reaches another level of power, scaring these werewolves from attacking for a while. Come on, werewolves, start today and see who is your master. Tang Tian released the 10-fist sword and 8-foot mirror, waved his huge fist, and challenged these relatively short werewolves. Ouch! As a result, such a provocation naturally made the werewolves extremely angry, and rushed over desperately, grabbing Susano with their sharp claws. It's a pity that Susano's defensive power is too strong. At most, they catch only a little spark, and Tang Tian punches them flying, and smashes them hard on the wall. However, this did not make the werewolves retreat, instead they rushed over one by one, desperately trying to solve Tang Tian and clean up this huge trouble. However, Tang Tian was like a machine without emotion. When a werewolf came, he knocked it down with a Susano. The werewolf who was far away was directly stunned by his electric shock. For a moment, Tang Tian was suppressed by himself, and these werewolves were out of breath. It didn't take long for them all to be suppressed by him, and none of them reacted. 3 minutes later, Serena and Michael looked at the messy apartment, and then at the werewolf who was lying here in a mess, losing his fighting power, and his shocked mouth could stuff an egg. Unexpectedly, Tang Tian was stronger than they thought, and he dealt with these werewolves with such ease, which was enough to prove that Tang Tian completely surpassed her expectations. Who are you? Why do you have such great power? Serena asked in disbelief. Some of them never thought that Tang Tian could single out an entire werewolf army by himself, which even the great elder of the blood race couldn't do at all. Hee, I'm just an ordinary superhero, and I'll help you achieve what I promised you. Tang Tian smiled confidently, raised Susano's huge fist, punched through the apartment building, and walked out intact, ready to have a good talk with Lucian. What are these idiots doing? They can't even deal with 3 of them right away. Outside the apartment, Lucian in the car waited for a while, and then realized that there was no sound inside, and his face became extremely ugly, not knowing what happened. Boom! Suddenly, there was a bang, and the wall of the apartment was directly smashed through. A huge blue energy giant walked out straight away, looking extraordinarily domineering. And behind him, Serena and Michael followed Tang Tian every step of the way, seeming to accept his protection. Those idiots really can't do it, I can only do it myself. Lucian was full of depression. He didn't expect that he sent 30 men to be defeated by this energy giant so easily, which made Lucian extremely annoyed. At the same time, Lucian felt that the IQ level of the werewolf was too low after transformation, so he longed for the perfect blood so that the werewolf could integrate the power of the blood clan and establish a new race. No matter who it is, I can't stop my goal. After so many years of planning, I must achieve this goal. Ouch! Lucian said frantically. After one transformation, he became a werewolf more than 3 meters tall, and rushed towards the tall energy giant in the distance at an extremely fast speed. At this time, Lucian was getting closer and closer to them, and within 10 meters away, he would rush in front of them. Sensing the danger of the situation, Serena fired without hesitation, and several bullets immediately hit Lucian, leaving several bullet holes in his forehead and heart. Tang Tian on the side looked at Serena's marksmanship, and nodded in satisfaction. Maybe apart from the lack of power of the silver bullet, Serena has already achieved it, the limit of what she can do. It's a pity that facing this level of attack, Lucian showed disdain on his face. Even when Serena's bullet emptied, it didn't hurt Lucian at all. After recovering all the wounds, Lucian stared at Selena in front of him with cold beast pupils, and said in a complimenting tone. You have good skills and are a qualified death walker, but you are still not my opponent. With this alone, you cannot become my opponent. Lucian made a comprehensive evaluation, proving that Serena's strength was not bad, and then turned his head to look at Tang Tian, his face full of fear. Even next to Tang Tian, the clown in red tights surprised Lucian. On his body, Lucian felt a strong sense of oppression, only slightly stronger than Tang Tian's. Hand over Michael, and I don't need to care about your protection of him, otherwise, you may be attacked by the whole werewolf clan. Lucian looked at Tang Tian in a stern tone, as if he had no patience, so he looked at him very seriously and said. Really, who do you think you are talking to? Tang Tian looked at Lucian in confusion. Susano clenched his fist, and punched towards the void. In an instant, a mass of highly compressed air slammed towards Lucian's position. Feeling something bad, Lucian managed to dodge quickly from Susano's powerful destructive power by virtue of the werewolf's skill. What kind of power is this, and what kind of monster are you? After Lucian took a blow from Susano, he looked at Tang Tian in horror, with a deep fear. After all, just a casual blow by the opponent has such great power, it is hard to imagine how strong the opponent is. Hee, I'm just a human being, but I'm stronger than ordinary human beings. Hearing Lucian's words, Tang Tian smiled, and his figure disappeared again. Feeling that something was wrong with Lucian, he quickly raised the car on one side, trying to resist. Seeing this scene, Tang Tian showed a contemptuous smile again, and saw that a flash of lightning suddenly appeared on Susano, and his figure disappeared completely. When he reappeared, Tang Tian appeared in front of Lucian. Under his surprised gaze, he punched through the car, triggering a violent explosion and blowing Lucian completely out. Of course, this is not the end. In order for Lucian to experience his own strength, Tang Tian naturally had to deal with him well, so that Lucian would be able to submit to him smoothly, thus controlling this race. So, the moment Lucian was blown up, Tang Tian used the Susano again and punched Lucian in the face. With a sound of boom, Lucian saw a huge fist, which slammed into him fiercely, and smashed him into the concrete floor. When he landed, his whole body was in severe pain, and his consciousness immediately fell into darkness. In the middle, he passed out completely. Coincidentally, some of the werewolves in the apartment who were cleaned up by Tang Tian came to their senses. However, when they saw Lucian, who was easily killed in a flash, they were all shocked and speechless, and could only stare blankly at him. In this scene, he couldn't even do the action of helping Lucian up. Impossible. The leader was easily solved by this guy. The eyes of the werewolf on one side were full of fear, as if he had never expected this to be the result. Phew, it's finally settled. It should be here in a few minutes. It's time for negotiation. Tang Tian smiled, and his mood improved exceptionally. Unbelievable, your strength is really shocking. It seems that I believe in you, maybe I am right. After Serena was shocked, there was no more doubt in her eyes. Instead, she looked at Lucian, who was lying on the ground, and was going to ask him some questions after he woke up. After 10 minutes, Lucian finally woke up, but his body couldn't recover in a hurry, so he could only look at the man like a demon god in the distance with weak eyes. Looking at the ghost-like man, Lucian's eyes were full of despair. The action that he thought he was sure of winning had unexpectedly turned into such an accident. With such a human intervening, he would die before he was born, and even the chance to avenge his lover Sophia was completely gone. What should we do now, Tang Tian? May I ask a question? Serena asked expectantly, just wanting to know if her family had something to do with Victor. No problem at all, but I have to reach an agreement with him first. The question you want to ask can be discussed later. I think at that time, he should become our ally. Tang Tian looked at Lucian, who fell on the ground, and smiled thoughtfully. Anyway, everything was within his expectation and it was not out of his control. According to his thinking, it is not too difficult for Lucian to become his subordinate. New York City, on a street. After recovering for about half an hour, Lucian got up from the ground, staggered, and walked in front of Tang Tian step by step. Looking at the human in front of him, Lucian's eyes were extraordinarily complicated, from fear just now to real fear, as if he was particularly afraid of the human in front of him. I lost to humans. You are very powerful. I hope you can kill me. Spare the other werewolves. Lucian said sincerely, as if he no longer had any thoughts of revenge. Oh, why should I kill you? And, don't you want to take revenge? Take revenge for your lover Sophia. Tang Tian shook his head, and asked back jokingly, causing Lucian to be taken aback suddenly, as if he felt that he had heard something wrong. At the very least, this human should be cooperating with the blood race, and he shouldn't be let go. Unexpectedly, what the other party said shocked Lucian. Of course I did. I've been waiting for this day for centuries. I'm willing to do anything for revenge. Lucian said resolutely that he missed his lover very much, and wanted Victor to be punished. Very good. Since that's the case, swear allegiance to me. Become my subordinate, and I will help you complete your revenge. Believe in my strength, you should have experienced it, right? Tang Tian looked at Lucian with a half smile, and made his own request. Regarding Tang Tian's solicitation, Lucian frowned, never expecting that the other party wanted to recruit him as his subordinate. Why did you choose me? Lucian was puzzled. The current werewolf power had not yet risen, and the other party should have joined the Blood Clan instead of helping him. Therefore, regarding this point, Lucian wanted to know very much, staring into Tang Tian's eyes, hoping that the other party would give him an explanation. It's very simple. My next goal is to cannibalize the Blood Clan and completely control the Blood Clan. You have enmity with the Blood Clan and are in the same camp as me. Naturally, I am willing to recruit you. Tang Tian explained indifferently. Lucian's eyes became brighter and brighter, and there was excitement in his heart, which he had never had before. Looking at Lucian's expression, Tang Tian was not surprised at all. Just as he guessed, he felt that he was completely tempted, and this was a good time for him to win him over. Then, Lucian, the werewolf leader, are you willing to surrender your rights and make all the werewolves submit to me? As long as you can do it, I will let you complete your revenge. I will do what I say. Tang Tian smiled softly, waiting for Lucian's choice. Hearing Tang Tian's words, Lucian knelt down on the ground without hesitation. The huge force caused the concrete floor to crack again, but Lucian's eyes were firm, as if he had made up his mind. Of course, you will be my master in the future. Werewolves will also be loyal to you and help you do anything. Lucian said firmly. Don't look like a joke at all. Obviously he has considered the consequences in all aspects. Very good. Then you go back later, organize all the werewolves first, and let them stand by for orders. When I give the order, it is the time for you to take action. Tang Tian's tone was majestic, and Lucian didn't dare to say anything more, and nodded silently. Yes, Lucian lowered his noble head and readily agreed. Anyway, after Tang Tian's display of strength, it is estimated that all werewolves would not object. From the point of view of worshipping and loyal to the strong, it is almost needless for him to say that the 30 werewolves who were dealt with by Tang Tian will prove to him that his decision is correct. By the way, Serena, it seems that there is something I need to find you should have a good communication with her. Suddenly, Tang Tian thought of something, and immediately turned his head to look at Serena, motioning for her to come directly. After receiving Tang Tian's order, Serena walked over with a complicated expression, and began to have a detailed conversation with Lucian in a low voice. It didn't take long for her expression to become particularly ugly. Needless to say, after talking to Lucian, she understood that Victor killed her family, and that Craven was in charge of the arrangement. For a moment, the two emotions of pain and regret began to intertwine in her heart, and for the first time, she had a strong hatred for Victor. Then, after telling Serena the secret she wanted to know, Lucian took these werewolves and left here, rushing back to the lair. I believe that these werewolf warriors would become Tang Tian's subordinates in a short time. This also made Tang Tian, who had no power at all in the Marvel world, show a happy smile for the first time, and was extraordinarily happy to see it. After a while, after all the werewolves disappeared, Serena stared at Tang Tian with extremely serious eyes, as if she had made a decision. I am willing to be your subordinate, and swear to be loyal to you forever. Please help me avenge, this is my only request. With pain on her face, Serena agreed to Tang Tian's request, already having her own resolution in her heart. Okay, that's it, let's get ready and go to the Blood Manor. Tang Tian thought for a while, and then made the next arrangement. Now that the werewolf problem has been solved, Lucian and Serena have obediently surrendered. It will be easier in the future. Since Craven has taken refuge in Lucian, it is the most reasonable way to use this relationship to directly control the Blood Clan. Michael next to him, when he heard that Tang Tian and Serena were going to the Blood Clan's manor, he still had a little fear on his face, and couldn't help but want to come in front of Tang Tian, and wanted to refuse to go to the Blood Clan's base camp. Who knows, before he walked over, Deadpool immediately moved in front of him in an instant, and said maliciously, "Hey, buddy, don't blame me for not reminding you. If you dare to say no, I will never let you go." Deadpool looked at this soft guy, and didn't forget to threaten him, and reminded this guy by the way, letting him know his current situation. "Okay, just pretend I didn't say it. I'm so unlucky that this happened to me," Michael said helplessly, with extra worry in his eyes, but now he has been controlled by Tang Tian, so it is impossible to escape. Next, after knowing his situation, Michael didn't say anything more, and got into the car obediently, and the group of them started to go to the blood camp. I believe that it won't be long before the blood race will be controlled by it. As long as this goal is accomplished, its power will expand several times, reaching a level second only to Shield and Hydra. Moreover, after completing this task, he will get 2 chances to draw a lottery, which will also make him stronger. In New York City, outside the Blood Manor, a car stopped steadily. Tang Tian and Serena walked out slowly and entered the hall. As soon as he entered, Tang Tian found that there were many drunken vampire nobles gathered here. They drank red wine elegantly, and some even played poker, as if they were spending infinite time. Is this the Blood Clan's resident? What a decadent atmosphere. Looking at these blood races, Tang Tian also had a mocking smile on his face, which caused a trace of embarrassment to appear in Serena's eyes. No way, this is the system of the Blood Clan. As nobles, you should enjoy life, so they all look like this. Serena glanced at these nobles, then continued to lead the way, ignoring the gazes of the surrounding blood races, and brought them into her room. After all, according to the agreement, Serena is already Tang Tian's subordinate, and naturally she wants to help him complete the plan, so it is the best place to conspire and discuss the issue of controlling the blood race here. However, the vampires and werewolves are well hidden in the world of the night. They have not been discovered by humans for several centuries. Obviously, it was also the work of the first undead Alexander. Facing his 2 sons who have turned into monsters, Alexander naturally helps wholeheartedly. It is estimated that S.H.I.E.L.D. will be quite afraid of the huge power he possesses. Similarly, in order to control the vampires and werewolves, Alexander was a stumbling block, preventing him from controlling the two races, so that meddling undead was already on Tang Tian's must-kill list. Suddenly, after they had been discussing for a while, the outside door was directly pushed open, and Craven, who had a gloomy face, walked quickly, as if he was very upset with Serena. You disobeyed my order, didn't participate in the reception work of the Amelia mission, and now you have brought 3 humans here. Is it a provocation to me? Craven slammed on the table, and looked at Tang Tian and Michael with murderous eyes, without the slightest courtesy. No, this is what I want to do. You are not qualified to control me. Your status is like a dog, surrounded by the elders. Serena's tone was not polite at all, and she interrupted Craven, wanting to continue. HMPH, do you know what you're doing? It's a bit disrespectful to provoke the superiors to those in power. Craven looked at Serena in a roaring tone, looking not polite at all. No, strictly speaking, you are not a high-ranking person. You are not qualified for this, and I just met Lucian. My new boss got a very important secret. Serena pointed to Tang Tian, who was silent beside her, and looked at Craven meaningfully. I got an important piece of information from Lucian, that is, the traitor of the blood race, and made a deal with him. Craven, what else do you want to say? Tang Tian stood up slowly, said with a sense of oppression, and looked at Craven without the slightest politeness. Human, what nonsense are you talking about? It's not your turn to intervene in the affairs of the blood race. After speaking, Craven pulled out the pistol on his body, and aimed at Tang Tian to press the trigger. It's a pity that Deadpool's speed was faster, and he cut off Craven's pistol with a single knife, which made him frightened into a fool. He just stood there quietly and didn't dare to say anything. I advise you to be good, otherwise, you will die. Deadpool sternly warned Craven. Under the influence of murderous intent, Craven trembled all over and dared not make any movements. He could only look at Tang Tian and Deadpool with fearful eyes. Craven was too scared to speak, so he could only respond in silence, and looked into the distance from time to time, wanting to see if there was anyone nearby to help. Okay, Craven, let's talk. See your choice, surrender or die. Tang Tian smiled contemptuously, and with a slight force on the soles of his feet, a huge force shattered the concrete floor, making Craven even more terrified. Craven, don't blame me for not persuading you. Lucian has already failed. My boss has already defeated him and forced him to surrender. Now you have your own choice. Do you choose to join us or die? Serena on the side said disdainfully, looking at Craven without a trace of pity. In order to make Craven feel hopeless, Tang Tian's eyes turned into kaleidoscopes, and Susano appeared directly, and a powerful force instantly pressed on Craven's body. PFF'd. Under the terrible coercion, Craven knelt on the ground resolutely, and looked at Tang Tian respectfully in front of him with a humble attitude. Respected master, I will be loyal to you and carry out any orders you have. Craven looked at Tang Tian flatteringly, and seemed to be very aware of current affairs. Very good, what a smart choice. As long as you are loyal to me, you will not be treated badly in the future. Tang Tian waved his hand, his eyes were still extraordinarily excited. Controlling these powers, his power level doubled again. Immediately afterwards, after using Sharingan to hypnotize Craven, Tang Tian let him go down, and discussed their follow-up actions. Boss, what are we going to do next? Deadpool looked at Tang Tian, and asked about the next move. Now that he had preliminarily controlled the vampires and werewolves, Deadpool was eager to know his boss's next move. Look for the cooperation of S.H.I.E.L.D., and first get rid of the protective umbrella of the vampires and werewolves, that is, the first undead Alexander. His power is very powerful. Only when Alexander is dealt with can I safely attack these two races. Tang Tian said unhurriedly, making Serena and Deadpool nod, and they didn't seem to object at all, only Michael on one side seemed a little unhappy. That Mr. Tang Tian, Alexander, is my ancestor anyway. Can you be more polite to him? Michael said helplessly that he hoped that Tang Tian would agree to his request. No, I can't compromise on this point. You should understand that Alexander's power should not be small, but he watched the vampires and werewolves wantonly causing troubles to human beings for centuries, and remained indifferent, so such the unreasonable guy should have been killed long ago. Tang Tian shook his head, his eyes were extraordinarily bright, for that Alexander, he was not prepared to let him live. The future belongs to the era of heroes. The undead who lived for countless centuries should have withdrawn from the stage of history long ago. He shouldn't still be attached to this world, so Tang Tian would not spare Alexander. Oh, that's fine. Michael felt that persuasion was hopeless, so he didn't say much, only stayed and sighed softly. New York City, inside the Blood Manor. After initially controlling the Blood Clan, Tang Tian let Serena and Deadpool go out, and stayed here alone, took out the satellite phone, and dialed a number. Hello, is this Mr. Tang Tian? After the phone was dialed, Nick Fury's voice came from inside. He seemed a little surprised. He never expected Tang Tian to contact him at this time. You know, after sending Tang Tian to investigate the Blood Clan and werewolves some time ago, Nick Fury thought that he would have to wait for about a month, but he didn't expect that the other party called in less than half a month. Yes, Tang Tian nodded, answered, thought for a while and continued. Werewolves and vampires do exist, this is the result of my investigation. What, then, why has the news about blood races and werewolves never been reported by TV stations? Nick Fury was taken aback, as if he couldn't believe that such a situation actually happened. It's very simple. It's their ancestor, Alexander, who has always protected those two races with a powerful force that controls the world. Now, I have basically controlled these two races. The only trouble is Alexander. When Tang Tian said this, he didn't say a word, waiting for Nick Fury to receive this amazing and shocking news. So, what do I need to do? As long as I can deal with the vampire and werewolf issues, I will do my best to help you. Nick Fury said without hesitation. In order to solve these two deeply rooted dark races, Nick chose to trust Tang Tian and hoped that he could handle it well. Prepare agents, as well as Black Widow and Hawkeye. After I find Alexander's lair, we will go out and kill that guy together. Tang Tian's tone, accompanied by bursts of murderous intent, made Nick Fury feel his determination, knowing that Tang Tian was going to attack with all his strength this time. Yes, after the matter is completed, give me a detailed investigation report, and let the werewolves and blood races file with S.H.I.E.L.D. and leave their identity records. Nick Fury thought for a while, then made his own request, waiting for Tang Tian's response. No problem, then I will call you when I have news. Tang Tian hung up the phone with a smile on his face. Everything was in his expectation. As long as he found Alexander's address, a big battle would start soon. Later, from Serena's mouth, Tang Tian learned about Andres, a historian of the Blood Clan, and the location of Alexander, so the group of them drove to the place where Andres lived. After driving for 3 hours, they finally came to the fringe area of New York City, which is full of gloomy mountains and forests. It looks like a church building, which is particularly conspicuous here. Surprisingly, the cross on the top of the church is placed upside down, which represents the meaning of the devil in the meaning of religion, and it is a particularly terrifying place at first glance. When they came to the front of the church, the monitor at the door began to rotate, aiming at their position, as if monitoring their actions. This is where Andres is being held, and only he knows where Alexander is hiding. However, he doesn't seem to welcome us. Serena looked at the closed door with a helpless expression. That's right, but I don't need his welcome either. After finishing speaking, Tang Tian's eyes turned into Sharingan, and in less than 3 seconds, the dark blue Susanoo almost covered his body, emitting traces of electric light. What the hell is this? Looking at the huge Susanoo on the screen, Andres was frightened, and turned pale with fright, thinking of a solution to the problem. Although Andres didn't know what the hell this dark blue giant was, a strong sense of crisis made him put his hand on the button. As long as this button is pressed, the 4 irrational werewolves that Lucian gave him will be released to attack the enemies outside the church indiscriminately. Boom! Unexpectedly, when Andres was just getting ready, there was a bang in the distance, and the door at the door also fell down in response, and a huge energy giant just came in like this. Seeing this, Andres was not polite, and directly pressed a button. In an instant, 4 organs outside the church were opened, and the 4 werewolves tied here suddenly opened their restraints and howled. He rushed towards Tang Tian and the others. Ouch! The liberated werewolf roared suddenly. His blood-red pupils were full of madness, and divided into 4 directions, outflanking Tang Tian and the others. Watching this scene, Serena held the double guns and pressed the trigger, and a jumping werewolf was hit in the head and fell to the ground. Another werewolf, who was also unlucky, was directly stabbed through the heart by Deadpool, and pierced the neck with another knife, and fell to the ground miserably. As for the other two werewolves, Tang Tian directly pinched their necks and killed them instantly. After dealing with these werewolves, Tang Tian came over with a smile on his face, looked at the stunned Andres, and seemed to want to see what other tricks he had. "Who are you? Why did you break into my territory?" Andres said angrily, feeling that this man was very unfriendly. "Call me Tang Tian. I know you have cooperated with Lu Xinxian, but he is now my subordinate. This time I came to you because I have something to do." Tang Tian said these words with a blank face, and looked at Andres, wanting to see his attitude. "Okay, what do you want to do? I can promise you, just don't hurt me, and don't destroy the property here. It's hard to accumulate this family property, and I don't want to be destroyed by you." Andres said quickly. It looked like he had already compromised, and he didn't want to be an enemy of Tang Tian. Knowing the attitude of the other party, Tang Tian is quite satisfied. He likes people who understand current affairs, so he is quite satisfied with Andres' attitude. "Then, tell me the address of Alexander Corvinus, I want to have a good chat with him. By the way, give him a call and say, I brought his direct descendants and came to see him." Tang Tian said with a murderous look on his face. His whole body was full of evil spirit. It was not at all as simple as visiting in the past. "All right." Facing Tang Tian's words, Andres, regardless of whether it was true or not, finally agreed to his request, picked up the phone and contacted Alexander. 10 minutes later, Andres put down the phone respectfully, looked at Tang Tian in front of him, and said, "Alexander, I would like to meet you. It's at Pier number 10 in New York City. You can come and see me anytime." "Yes, you are free. We will not come here again." Tang Tian nodded, then turned around and left. Anyway, he had already obtained the important information he wanted to obtain, and it was completely unnecessary to stay here. Chapter 31. At night, New York is a port. Tang Tian and Serena came here, and Deadpool followed them, and they came to the number 15 pier together. Just after arriving here, a huge Quinjet fighter landed steadily near the port, and the hatch opened, and a large group of agents led by Black Widow and Hawkeye came slowly. Moreover, these agents are equipped with advanced Shellis MP5, grenades and other weapons, and they are armed to the teeth. Obviously, Nick Fury has made complete preparations and is determined to wipe out Alexander's forces. "Wow, what a great battle, boss. It seems that this task is very interesting." Deadpool smiled cheaply, looking extremely excited. "Yes, after all, it is an old monster that has lived for more than 10 centuries, so don't make more preparations. It may be counterattacked by that guy." Tang Tian said irrefutably, turned his head to look at the people from S.H.I.E.L.D., and walked slowly. In less than a minute, the Black Widow came heroically, staring into his eyes with a nostalgic gaze. "Long time no see, Mr. Tang Tian. You seem to have become stronger." The Black Widow greeted Tang Tian with a smile. Her eyes were shining with an inexplicable luster, and her charming appearance made Serena on the side feel disgusted. "You too, Miss Natasha, last time goodbye. I haven't seen you for a few days. Next time, if you have a chance, please buy Miss Natasha another cup of coffee." Tang Tian said politely, with a vague smile on his face. "Okay." Black Widow nodded, her expression became serious. Looking at this scene, Tang Tian naturally didn't talk nonsense. Pointing to the number 15 pier in the distance, he explained. "The pier in the distance is the territory of the undead Alexander. Our goal is to rush in directly, just kill him." After arranging the plan in a simple and rough manner, Hawkeye's expression froze for a moment. He never expected that Tang Tian's method would be so random. Natasha on the side smiled, and asked suspiciously, "According to the investigation, we found that Alexander seems to have contacts with many high-level officials in the United States. Through the temptation of longevity, he obtained great power in their hands. So, this is a tough battle. We still have to succeed." Hawkeye frowned, feeling that this kind of mission was very dangerous for the first time, far beyond what he expected. "That's right, if we don't deal with Alexander, the problem of the vampires and werewolves may never be resolved, so we must win this battle. A strong attack is also the only way." Tang Tian clenched his fists and said without hesitation. "All right then, you take the lead first, we will launch an attack on the flanks, and we should be able to break through their defenses by cooperating with each other. The Black Widow hesitated for a moment, and proposed a fairly safe plan, just wanting to see if Tang Tian had any comments. No problem, then we go first. Tang Tian nodded, and after discussing with the Black Widow, he took Serena and Michael and walked towards the number 15 pier. At this time, on the number 15 dock, a huge warship shone with pure white lights, making this area as bright as day, and all the darkness was under this warship and there was nothing to hide. Moreover, this warship is also Alexander's means of transportation, allowing him to tour his private territory every day, or to clean up the troubles caused by the vampires and werewolves so that humans cannot detect the existence of these dark creatures. Staring at the huge warship, Tang Tian and his party walked toward the warship without stopping, but not long after, a group of well-equipped soldiers stopped in front of them. You have already entered the private domain. Please raise your hands, don't embarrass me, or you might as well let you know what is polite. After a group of soldiers surrounded them, the leading black man looked at Tang Tian and the others expressionlessly, motioning for them to stop. Seeing these annoying gun muzzles, Serena wanted to pull out her pistol and kill these annoying guys, but before she could make a move, Tang Tian directly held down her hand. Don't act rashly, otherwise, it will not be conducive to our plan. Tang Tian said seriously. Serena had no choice but to give up the plan of shooting, and gave these guys a vicious look. Say your intentions. The leading black man glanced at Tang Tian and asked in an unquestionable tone. Of course, I visited Mr. Alexander. The person next to me is his direct descendant. I need to meet Mr. Alexander to discuss an important matter. Tang Tianpi explained with a non-smiling smile. He looked very friendly, and he didn't have the slightest dissatisfaction. After getting this answer, the leading black man nodded, picked up the phone casually, contacted Alexander, and hung up after saying a few words. Please follow me, I will take you there. After receiving the order, the black man eased his expression slightly, waved his hand, and brought the group of them directly to the warship and walked towards Alexander's position. Along the way, some elite soldiers can be seen almost everywhere, patrolling everywhere, showing Alexander's amazing wealth and the extent of his power. It is because of the huge organization established by Alexander that the blood race and werewolves have not appeared in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s vision, or the files have been strictly sealed up by the above. After seeing Alexander's strength, Tang Tian praised him in his heart, feeling that this old monster who has lived for more than 10 centuries is really not a simple existence. Not long after, they came to the captain's room. The black officer glanced at Alexander who was beside him. The other party waved his hand, and the black officer left directly, leaving a group of them in this place. What I have to say is that Alexander is indeed the world's first undead person, with a strong vitality contained in his body, and his body is also full of the aura of a superior, extremely domineering. When Tang Tian was looking at Alexander, the other party was also looking at him. When he saw him, Alexander still felt a little surprised, and then looked at Michael on the side, wondering what he was thinking. Nice meeting, Mr. Alexander, nice to meet you. You can call me Tang Tian. Tang Tian smiled, stared at Alexander, and smiled softly. Oh, young man, why are you bringing my descendants to me? And what is your purpose? Alexander stared at Tang Tian in a stern tone, and said without hesitation. Of course, I want to talk to Mr. Alexander. I will tell you the purpose later. Tang Tian's expression was calm, and he said very calmly, without giving in at all. New York City, number 15 pier, above the warship. Are you really Alexander, my ancestor? Michael looked at Alexander unexpectedly, felt the blood connection, and couldn't help asking. Yes, this is the name I have used for centuries, Michael, my child, it makes me so happy to meet you. Alexander smiled kindly. Not like an old monster who had lived for more than a dozen centuries, but like a gentle old man, making people unable to give birth, and feeling disgusted. All these years, Mr. Alexander, it seems that you have been hiding well. No one has found your trace, and no one has found werewolves and vampires. Tang Tian said sarcastically, thinking that Alexander seemed to be meddling too much. Of course, under the protection of endless wealth and power, I can do everything, even what happened to werewolves and vampires, I can easily erase it, so that no human being will know. Alexander said domineeringly, and he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. With his financial resources and power, what he wanted to do was nothing but a simple question. However, how many humans have been harmed during this period? Do you know all of them? Suddenly, Serena's emotions were a little out of control. She looked at Alexander angrily and asked him questioningly. I don't care. For more than a dozen centuries, I have seen their constant struggle and the harm they have caused to human beings. But I have no choice but to control the incident and not develop towards a more dangerous place. Cleaning up the mess is the only thing I can do. At the same time, hide our family's unfortunate past. Now I am exhausted physically and mentally, and there is no point in living for me. Alexander shook his head, and said indifferently that, in his opinion, werewolves and vampires are descendants of his son, and he can only do so much. For more than a dozen centuries, the constant cleaning up of troubles made Alexander helpless and heartbroken, but he didn't know how to solve it, so he could only deal with it in a negative way. It's too much for you to do nothing even though you have the ability to solve this problem. Serena was in so much pain, and thinking of her family, she couldn't help but feel even more sad. Yes, I have the ability to solve it, but facing the sons who have turned into monsters, I really can't do anything. Alexander shook his head. His eyes were extremely serious, not looking like he was joking. At this time, Tang Tian, who had been silent for a long time, looked at the time on his watch, and then slowly walked over, step by step, in front of Alexander, ready to say something to him. Really, Mr. Alexander, since you are in such a difficult situation, let me help you. Tang Tian stared into Alexander's eyes, and his eyes turned into Sangoyu Sharingan. His body also emitted a trace of electric light, and a terrifying aura directly pressed on Alexander's body. How to help? Alexander glanced at Tang Tian unexpectedly, and asked in surprise. As an undead who has lived for a long time, Alexander possesses very strong strength, and his overall strength is a bit stronger than Captain America, but he can still feel Tang Tian's terrifying coercion. Obviously the opponent's strength is higher than his own. Of course, it's for you to sleep peacefully and unify the vampires and werewolves. In this way, there will be no war, so please, Mr. Alexander, make your own choice. Tang Tian said unhurriedly. His eyes turned into kaleidoscopes, and Susanoo was also being pressed on his body, looking extraordinarily domineering. Suddenly, at the moment when the atmosphere became tense, gunshots suddenly appeared outside, and there was even the sound of a grenade exploding, which made Alexander, who was originally calm, tremble. Could it be that you have already prepared, so he came to me for this matter, right? Alexander sighed deeply. His face seemed to be quite old, and he asked Tang Tian helplessly. It's natural. Your power is about to collapse today. This world doesn't need a power to protect vampires and werewolves. Tang Tian took a step earlier, and Susanoo's huge palm grabbed Alexander, making it impossible for her to move at all. Facing Tang Tian's attack, Alexander didn't have the slightest thought of fighting back. After hesitating for a moment, he finally decided to give up resisting and just looked into his eyes. You won. The future is in your hands. Please let the werewolf and the vampire coexist peacefully. This is my only condition. Please promise me. Alexander said sincerely, as if he had put forward his biggest request and only wish. No problem. I agree to this request. After all, they are the forces I will control in the future. Tang Tian smiled, and the kaleidoscope Sharingan turned again, looked into Alexander's eyes, and slowly activated the illusion of Yudu. For a moment, Alexander's expression became dull, and his expression became extremely serene, as if he had fallen asleep. Phew, it's finally succeeded. Sleeping forever in the world of Yuyu may be your best ending, undead. After immersing Alexander in the permanent illusion, Tang Tian was very satisfied, so he snapped his fingers, and Alexander entered his storage ring. You know, Alexander's perfect blood is extremely precious, and it may not be too difficult to mass-produce super soldiers by then. The laboratory obtained by Norman Osborn will also be of great use. 5 minutes later, a violent lightning ball exploded suddenly, and the huge warship also burst into flames. When the Black Widow and Hawkeye arrived, everything had been wiped out. And the Shield side paid a lot of casualties, and it was considered that Alexander's troops were dealt with completely, but their casualties were also very serious. After everything was dealt with, the Black Widow came to Tang Tian with doubts on her face. Looking at the raging fire, she asked Tang Tian in surprise. Where is Alexander? Have you found his body? His genes are very valuable to us. Black Widow asked suspiciously, wanting to get a share of this battle, so as not to let S.H.I.E.L.D. act in vain. Sorry, when Alexander found himself unable to escape, he chose to commit suicide, and his body was wiped out in a pile of grenades. The burning warship is the best evidence. Well, I am very tired, thank you for your help, I will take care of the issue of the vampires and werewolves. Tang Tian casually found an excuse, waved his hand and left. Anyway, he didn't need to stay where he was, and leaving directly was the best choice. And the Black Widow and Hawkeye looked at each other, and they also felt that there must be something weird in it, and their intuition told them that Tang Tian must have obtained huge benefits, but because there was no evidence, it was impossible for them to say anything more. New York City, Osborne Industries, Underground Lab. 3 days passed in a flash. After Tang Tian dealt with Alexander's problem, Lucian took the opportunity to attack Amelia, one of the 3 elders of the Blood clan, and took the other's blood. In addition, Lucian also went to the location where the ancestor werewolf William was sealed, and also collected the blood of his ancestors, and handed them directly to Tang Tian. The first generation of perfect blood, the first generation of werewolf blood, and the first generation of blood elder blood. After the blood was gathered, Dr. Connors began to study it all night. After 3 days of continuous research, he finally formulated a genetic enhancer that could evolve perfectly. At this time, in the bright laboratory, Dr. Connors shook the light red potion in his hand, and his eyes showed obsession. Crunch. At this moment, Tang Tian brought Cleven and Lucian directly here, and when he discovered the scene in front of him, he also showed a smile on his face. Haha, Dr. Connors, it seems that your research is very good. Did the experiment succeed? Tang Tian looked at Dr. Connors with an inexplicable look in his eyes. Because, 3 days ago, Tang Tian gave these things to Dr. Connors, and asked him when he could research the medicine, and finally got a deadline of 3 days. Now, looking at the other party's expression, it should be that the perfect evolution potion has been researched, and Tang Tian's preliminary plan has been achieved. Hearing Tang Tian's words, Dr. Connors immediately stopped what he was doing, and his face became extraordinarily excited, as if he was very happy. That's right, boss, the potion has been successfully researched. I have produced 1,000 gene enhancers. They are ready to be used at any time. Dr. Connors danced excitedly, his face brimming with confidence, and he casually opened a refrigerated box, which was neatly packed with densely packed gene enhancers. Each potion, about 100 milliliters, as long as it is injected into the blood race and werewolf, it will evolve at a high speed. According to the situation in the movie, the werewolf implanted with a gene enhancer will gain a complete IQ, not afraid of silver metal, more flexible during battle, and his strength will increase to 15 times that of ordinary people. As for the vampires, after fusing this genetic medicine, they will grow a pair of wings, their strength and speed will also be greatly improved, and they are not afraid of the sun, without any shortcomings. They are Tang Tian's ideal super warrior troops. Very good. Well done, Dr. Connors, continue to manufacture potions in batches and complete our plan. Tang Tian was very satisfied with Dr. Connors' answer, and snapped his fingers lightly, and he put the 1,000 medicine boxes in the laboratory into the storage ring. At the same time, Tang Tian took out 2 specially made gene enhancers and handed them to Cleven and Lucian respectively, making his 2 new recruits slightly stunned. This is a specially made enhancer. After you inject it, your strength will become stronger. Start injecting now, and let Dr. Connors record the data by the way. After Tang Tian gave the order, he stood aside and waited quietly. Understood, boss. Lucian and Cleven's eyes lit up, and they took the genetic enhancer from Tang Tian's hand, and injected it into their necks without hesitation. In less than 3 seconds, a terrifying change immediately appeared. The bodies of the 2 of them swelled rapidly, the veins all over their bodies also popped up, and their strength continued to increase. The first is Lucian. After transforming into a huge werewolf, the skin of his whole body turned light black, and his eyes became particularly wise, as if full of wisdom. In addition, on Craven's side, during the strengthening process, a pair of wings grew, like a bat, with sharp spikes on them, which is very aggressive at first glance. Power, so powerful that it is speechless, it is really amazing. After gaining new power just now, Cleven and Lucian became extremely excited, and looked at Tang Tian with more respect. After all, they deeply understood the extent of Tang Tian's strength. This level of power was terrifying. Even if they became a new race, they would still be extremely afraid of Tang Tian. Okay, Craven, Lucian. The strengthening has been completed, let's go back to the Blood Manor first. Tang Tian waved his hand, and the two of them nodded, followed Tang Tian, and left the laboratory together. Not long after, they returned to the entrance of the Blood Manor, stopped the car and walked out. Just after entering, they discovered the sound of the sleeping place and the sound of a crane. Looking at the movement in the distance, Lucian was very happy, but Craven looked a little complicated, but in the end he didn't say much. Has it already started? Boss, you are going to release Victor and let me complete my revenge. Lucian looked at Tang Tian excitedly, apparently in disbelief. Yes, this is an agreement between us. By the way, Craven, here are 500 genetic enhancers. You are responsible for strengthening the elite of the blood race. After Lucian and I returned from the werewolf lair, we began to execute many. After finishing speaking, Tang Tian snapped his fingers, and 5 boxes appeared in front of Craven's eyes, which were the boxes containing the gene enhancer. Yes, boss, Craven respectfully responded to Tang Tian, and at the same time, ordered his Deathwalkers to sort out a batch of lists, and prepared to take the lead in strengthening the nobles in the Blood Clan. Soon, Victor's sleeping coffin was dug out, and Serena also came over, watching Tang Tian and reporting. Boss, Victor's coffin has been dug out, so it shouldn't be a problem to try him later. Serena said seriously, without the slightest emotion in her eyes. That's right, then let's go to the werewolf's lair first. Lucian, you will lead the way. From today onwards, there will be no vampires and werewolves anymore, only new races will appear in this world. Tang Tian said firmly that in order to obtain this huge power, he was willing to put in a lot of hard work, until today it finally paid off. Being able to rule so many blood races and werewolves at once is enough to make his power several times stronger. No problem, I will always be loyal to my boss and will never betray. Lucian said humbly that with the hope of revenge, their entire race would be strengthened, so Lucian was especially grateful to Tang Tian. Looking at Lucian's attitude, Tang Tian was still very satisfied, nodded, and took Serena and Deadpool to the werewolf's lair, preparing to subdue this race. After entering the werewolf tribe's lair, when they got out of the car, many werewolves stared at them viciously. Their ferocious gazes were enough to make most people's scalp go numb. It's a pity that Tang Tian was in this environment, and he didn't have the slightest expression on his face, and he didn't express anything at all when facing the unfriendly eyes of these werewolves. As a person who wants to achieve great things, Tang Tian's city is already very deep, and his happiness and anger are even more secretive, looking extraordinarily indifferent. Lucian, is this your welcome attitude? Your subordinates are not very friendly. Serena frowned, and said to Lucian questioningly. Sorry, Serena, the nature of werewolves is extremely cruel, not to mention that I believe in the belief that the strong are respected, and continue to develop descendants. I am the strongest existence in the entire werewolf race, and I suppress them. They dare not make mistakes. Lucian explained with a headache, took a look, and looked at the werewolf Tang Tian with great interest. Lucian was relieved, for fear of offending his boss. After arriving at the core area, Lucian found the werewolf patriarch, looked at him seriously and said, Are you ready? Are we ready to seek refuge with Lord Tang Tian? It's ready, but, do we really want to be loyal to a human being? We have to have fun with our enemy blood. The werewolf patriarch sighed softly, and felt a little aggrieved when he thought of such a powerful leader actually wanting to take refuge in a human being. Of course it is true. Loyalty to the boss is the most correct choice. We'd better not do other things. This is my most important order. The werewolf patriarch had never seen Tang Tian's true strength, and he had no idea how powerful the human being in front of him was. It is estimated that all their races combined could not be his opponent. Moreover, Tang Tian also has a gene enhancer in his hands, which can double the overall combat power of the blood race. It can be said that this is a very important choice. Okay then, I'll gather them now, but if there is any resistance, I hope you can handle this matter reasonably. The werewolf patriarch hesitated for a moment, and finally agreed to his request. Soon, At the request of the patriarch, all the werewolves gathered in the hall, full of killing intent against Tang Tian, who was standing in front of the stage. He seemed a little unconvinced, so his eyes were very cold, and he said something: if they don't agree, the idea of tearing them apart. Seeing that all the werewolves had gathered together, Tang Tian waved his hand to make Serena and Deadpool retreat temporarily, and stood slowly on the stage by himself, with a trace of majesty on his face. Starting today, the werewolf is under my control. I know that many of you are not convinced. Now I will give you a chance. As long as you challenge me, you will be the king of the werewolf if you succeed. But if you fail, you will become my subordinate, always obey orders. Tang Tian said unhurriedly. The werewolf's emotions were also fully mobilized, and the killing intent on his body was quite strong, as if he wanted to tear the human being in front of him. Kill this human. Let this guy see how powerful we werewolves are. The werewolves yelled and pulled out their pistols, as if they were about to fire. Regarding this, the werewolf patriarch wanted to say something, but Lucian shook his head calmly, as if he was not worried about Tang Tian's safety at all. Bang bang bang. After the werewolves were aroused, they fired without hesitation. Countless bullets turned into metal storms and flew towards Tang Tian's position. Unfortunately, within a distance of 5 meters, the bullets stopped completely. After being restrained by some mysterious force, these bullets were directly compressed, and finally formed an iron ball, which fell to the ground. Immediately, the entire hall fell silent, and the werewolves were all dumbfounded. Seeing Tang Tian's terrifying power, they were terrified and did not dare to take any action. Seeing that the werewolves didn't dare to make any moves, Tang Tian turned his head to look at Lucian, and said in a majestic tone. Lucian, maybe you were the former leader of the werewolf, but now I am the king of the werewolf tribe. Kneel down for me. Allegiance to your new king. Tang Tian said domineeringly. Susano opened it directly, and a strong coercion made these werewolves' feet soften, and they knelt down one after another. At this moment, the werewolf no longer had the idea of underestimating Tang Tian, and could only stare at Tang Tian in front of him with a fearful gaze, no matter what big movements he made. Looking down at these werewolves, Tang Tian was very satisfied. In a werewolf tribe where strength is the most important thing, as long as they prove to be strong enough, these werewolves would naturally dare not make mistakes, and instead would be extremely loyal subordinates. Then, after seeing these werewolves intimidating for a while, Tang Tian brewed his emotions, and continued, I don't care, what conflicts did you have with the blood race? But now the blood race is also under my control, and you will usher in a new life. You don't have to live in a dark world, I will bring you glory, surpass this world, and create our own future. Ouch! Hearing such passionate words, many werewolves transformed one after another, with a kind of enthusiasm from the heart, and looked at Tang Tian with complete respect. It can be seen that Tang Tian's speech is very useful. Although the IQ of these werewolves is not particularly high, they are also eager to leave this dark world. After completely subduing the werewolf, Lucian came to Tang Tian. Tang Tian didn't talk nonsense. After snapping his fingers, 5 boxes containing gene enhancers were neatly placed on the ground. Send these things to strengthen your subordinates. After successfully completing this step, come to the Blood Manor and start to complete your revenge. After Tang Tian gave this order, he took Serena and left. Anyway, he had already explained what he wanted to explain, and it was time to properly deal with Victor's problem. You know, there are only 3 elders in the Blood Clan, one of them has already been dealt with by Lucian, and the other one is about to be dealt with. As for the last one, Tang Tian didn't think about these elders alive. In order to completely control these 2 races, Tang Tian doesn't suggest using ruthless means. Just like those elders, they are completely worthless to him, instead it's better to kill them directly. In the car, Serena leaned against Tang Tian, looking at him tenderly, like a little secretary. Boss, it's great to work with you. I hope I will always be by your side. Serena said with a look of fascination. Obviously, Tang Tian's actions during this period have been recognized by this blood beauty, and she has completely fallen in love with her. No problem. After all, you are also my favorite little secretary. I will use you in the future. Tang Tian pinched Serena's face, and said happily. Of course, for Serena's strengthening, Tang Tian is going to strengthen him with the perfect blood. In this way, she is a blood clan that can walk in the sun, and it also conforms to Tang Tian's aesthetics. She has both strength and strength. A handsome secretary. Blood Manor, early in the morning, at 4 o'clock. After Lucian completed strengthening all werewolves, he came to the Blood Manor, waiting for Tang Tian's arrangement, and prepared to kill Victor to complete his revenge. In order to wait for this day, Lucian paid a lot of price, and now he can finally complete his revenge, which makes Lucian feel very good. Boss, when can I be executed, Victor? Lucian looked at Tang Tian longingly, waiting for his order. Soon, but let Serena ask him some questions first. Then I will hand him over to you, so that Victor can experience despair too. Tang Tian said with a smile, without a trace of emotion in his eyes. It is good. Lucian had no objection at all, and began to make detailed arrangements according to Tang Tian's request, which I believe would be enough to surprise the Blood Elder. Half an hour later, in a dark secret room, Victor, who had been sleeping for centuries, slowly woke up with the infusion of some blood bags. After waking up, Victor looked at Serena, who was half kneeling on the ground with complicated eyes. He thought of his daughter and betrayed him together with the werewolf. This is also the aspect that made Victor angry. So when facing Serena, he didn't completely trust her. My child, Serena, tell me what happened. You woke me up at this hour. Victor waved his hand, looked at Serena with incomparable majesty, and let Serena come to his side. It's like this. Craven betrayed the Blood Clan and wanted to cooperate with Lucian to completely wipe out the elders of the Blood Clan. So for your safety, I must wake you up. Serena's expression was extremely serious, and she explained to Victor the important reason for waking him up, and was going to see Victor's attitude towards her, before deciding how to deal with him. Because, no matter what Victor said, he had taken care of his father for more than 10 centuries, so Serena still had some feelings and wanted to see what choice he would make in the end. HMPH, who allowed you to act privately, going against the opinions of those in power, and the rule set by the blood race is that one is in power and two are sleeping. You violated the order and brought Craven to see me immediately. This matter is clear. Victor's tone was extremely majestic, and he felt that Serena had broken the rules of the Blood Clan, so he didn't mind punishing her, and felt that Serena was not worthy of his trust. It seems that you would rather trust your subordinates than my daughter, right? There was no trace of emotion on Serena's face, and she said with a questioning mood. I love you, my daughter, but now you have broken the rules of the vampire. This is something I have no choice about. Therefore, in order for the vampire to survive for a long time, I must accept punishment for you. After pulling out the infusion tube, Victor felt that he had regained some of his strength, and stood up from his seat, staring at his titular daughter with fierce eyes. Blood race. Maybe it won't exist anytime soon. Hearing Victor's words, Tang Tian walked out with a sneer, and walked in with Lucian and Craven behind him, looking at the Blood Elder with a blank expression. Turning his head, Victor found two familiar people. When he saw Lucian's appearance, Victor turned pale with shock, and his eyes were filled with extreme fear. Lucian, aren't you already dead? Why are you still alive? Could it be that, Craven, you betrayed me? Victor pointed at these two people, and the horror in his eyes became more and more intense. Unexpectedly, the werewolf he wanted to kill the most appeared in front of his eyes alive and kicking. Of course it was Craven who did it. If I don't cooperate with him, how can I live well? Now that I survived, it's time to avenge Sophia. Are you ready? Quote. Lucian said coldly, looking at Victor with ferocious eyes, wishing he could kill him right now. Serena, you also betrayed me. Come, catch these traitors and execute them all. Victor, who didn't know his situation, yelled crazily, but outside the secret room, no blood came, as if he had abandoned Victor. After calling for a long time, no blood race came over, which also filled Victor with despair. It's useless, the Blood Clan Elder Victor, the current Blood Clan is under my control. You are useless, Lucian, just complete your revenge. Tang Tian turned his head to watch, and gave Lucian an order. Okay. Lucian nodded without hesitation, ordered the two werewolves around him, and tied Victor tightly. Afterwards, they sent Victor directly into the room where the vampires were executed, and waited until 6 when the sun would shine in and turn Victor into fly ash. Lucian, I was wrong, I shouldn't punish Sophia. Please forgive me, I will definitely correct it. Victor struggled desperately, trying to break free from this bondage, but after struggling for a long time, he couldn't leave here at all. It's useless, the sun will come soon, this is your end, Victor. Tang Tian pressed a button, and above Victor's head, a huge hole appeared directly. As long as the sun shines in, then Victor's ending can be imagined. After saying this, the sun fell directly from the sky within a few seconds. When it shone on Victor's body, a raging fire burned on his body, and finally turned into a pile of black ash, completely dissipated. Revenge, I finally completed my revenge. Lucian wept with joy and said that at this moment, he felt extremely happy, and being able to complete revenge also made him feel unprecedentedly happy. At the same time, Lucian admired Tang Tian more and more, and felt that following this boss, he would definitely be able to get the future he wanted. So boss, is there anything we need to do next? Lucian looked at Tang Tian respectfully, and asked very seriously. Serena and Craven on the side, upon hearing this, also looked at their new boss respectfully, waiting for his order. Integrate vampires and werewolves. From now on, you are all super warriors. After the integration, you will disperse into human society. From today on, I will lead you to rise. You don't have to hide in dark corners. It's time to show you power. Tang Tian smiled slightly. He already had a management plan for them. He believed that the emergence of new races would definitely make S.H.I.E.L.D. vigilant, but he didn't care. He already had the idea of negotiating with S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. is not an idiot. In his current situation, he is no longer a simple superhero, but a hero who dominates one side. He will definitely not be as casual as before in dealing with others. A month later, New York City, S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Nick Fury took the report sent by Coulson, carefully studied it, and flipped through it page by page. After reading it, he closed the documents with a thoughtful expression on his face. Director, what is Superman's report about? Coulson asked curiously, as if he wanted to know what was wrong with the report submitted by Tang Tian. I've read the truth about vampires and werewolves, as well as the solution to this problem, and what I wrote is well-founded. The solution is also perfect, and it even surpassed my expectations. Nick Fury frowned and said in surprise. How does Superman do it? Coulson was very surprised. He really didn't know what method Tang Tian would use to make Nick Fury so dignified. He took control of the vampires and werewolves, and used some method to eliminate their weaknesses. Now he is the boss behind the scenes who controls these two races. Nick Fury smiled wryly. After working for a long time, S.H.I.E.L.D. lost troops and generals, but Tang Tian took advantage of it, which also made him extremely depressed. So, what is our next countermeasure against Superman, and do we need to be vigilant against him? Coulson asked with concern, for fear that S.H.I.E.L.D. would encounter greater trouble again. No, try to win him over as much as possible. With his character, he shouldn't cause extensive damage, so it's the best choice to win him over. Just do as I said. Nick Fury waved his hand and informed him of his request, and Coulson withdrew directly without saying anything more. In fact, Nick Fury also knew how powerful vampires and werewolves would be combined. The combination of this power should be comparable to mutants, so Nick Fury chose to use the method of wooing. After watching Coulson leave, Nick Fury looked into the distance, and said in a helpless tone, I really underestimated you, Tang Tian, I didn't expect you to do it so perfectly. Now, it's too late. I can only cooperate with you. On the other side, when S.H.I.E.L.D. was thinking about countermeasures against Tang Tian's mind suddenly sounded an emotionless mechanical sound from the system, as if his mission had been completed. Ding! Task 1, the investigation of the truth has been completed, and the host will be rewarded with a chance to draw a lottery. Ding! Task 2, the task of controlling the vampires and werewolves has been completed, reward the host with a chance to draw a lottery. Hearing the system's voice, Tang Tian's face was also filled with a strong smile. After tossing for so long, he even settled the two races of blood race and werewolf. Naturally, he wanted to become stronger. Now, Tang Tian is very happy to get 2 lucky draw chances in one go. He wants to have a continuous lucky draw to see what good things he can get from the system. After thinking about it, Tang Tian communicated with the system in his mind, and directly started the lottery draw. System, use the chance of lottery draw, I want to draw a lottery. Just after finishing speaking, the system responded. the host's request has been accepted. The countdown to the lottery draw begins. 3, 2, 1. Soon, Tang Tian entered the consciousness space, looked at the starry sky above his head, and the huge turntable above his head, with a look of anticipation on his face, waiting for the start of the lottery draw. Afterwards, the huge turntable started to turn. Starting from skills, it went through bloodlines, characters and props areas. In the first round, it didn't land on any area, which made Tang Tian a little disappointed. In the second round, after going through 3 areas in a row, there was no intention of stopping. It was not until the prop area that they finally stopped. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a world-class item, the Predator World Experience card. With this card, the host can live in this world for a week. When the time is over, it will automatically return to this world. After the system finished speaking, it turned again, and when it came to the character area, it stopped immediately, and the characters it drew made Tang Tian a little unimaginable. Ding! Congratulations to the host for being drawn, the savior of Terminator, John Connor T-5000. This character has all the knowledge of the Terminator T model. In an instant, after the lottery draw was over, Tang Tian returned to the real world, and a white light flashed, and John Connor appeared in front of him, looking at him respectfully. Wow, it's really great. I didn't expect the lottery to be so rich. Knowing that what he got this time is very valuable, Tang Tian also showed a strong smile on his face. Originally, Tang Tian's technology side was relatively weak, but he didn't expect to get the perfect technology from the Terminator world in a lucky draw. In this way, it would be no problem to develop his own robot army. Moreover, the World Experience card allows you to go to the world of the Predator, and obtain alien technology from it, so that your strength can be strengthened. Generally speaking, the arrival of these things can be regarded as timely help, which can effectively improve his somewhat weak technology. Boss, I will be your bodyguard from now on. Is there any problem for me to do anything? John's attitude was very respectful, as if in his eyes, Tang Tian was his real master. Very good, I don't have many requirements. First help me know how to create artificial intelligence. That is Skynet, can you do it? Tang Tian gave the order, looked at John in front of him, and asked a question. No problem, boss, give me 2 months, and I should be able to find out. John nodded, he seemed to have his own plan in mind, and he didn't feel too embarrassed. After all, as the Terminator second only to Skynet, John's strength is very strong, and his combat power is not weak at all. It is estimated that except for Magneto, who has the ability to restrain him a little bit, no one else can restrain this terrible middle-class one. No one can restrain this fearsome Terminator anymore. What I have to say is that the system is really a good thing. It first strengthened his strength at first, and now it started to help him form forces, which made Tang Tian very satisfied. I believe that if I draw a few more prizes, I will get more benefits. However, now that I have strength, it is time to find Jin Bing and the Punisher. Since he had just transmigrated, he had no strength, and he didn't want to cause trouble, so Tang Tian didn't trouble these 2 people for the time being. Now that he had his own power, it was completely impossible not to retaliate against Jin Bing. Even Jin Bing has learned about his situation, and it is still unknown whether he will take any action, but Tang Tian will definitely not give him this opportunity, and naturally wants to give him a punishment. 1 month later, John Connor, who won the lottery, was arranged by Tang Tian to the underground laboratory of Osborne Industries, and began to study the T-shaped robot, trying to perfectly copy the technology of the Terminator world into the Marvel world. As for the new werewolves and new blood races, they have only arranged an identity for the time being, waiting to negotiate some conditions with S.H.I.E.L.D., and these former dark races will have legal identities. So before the negotiation, Tang Tian used his own financial resources to buy a lot of bars, so that these new blood races and new werewolves could temporarily have a place to entertain, so he opened 8 nightclubs in a row. At night, in a noisy nightclub, werewolves and vampires had a carnival here all night. The colorful lights and explosive music made these former dark races extremely enjoyable. With a sound of touch, when the vampires and werewolves inside were having fun, the door outside was suddenly opened, and a gust of cool wind blew past. Afterwards, a black man wearing sunglasses and carrying a long dagger walked in slowly, full of murderous looks, and it looked like he was here to kick the field. Seeing the uninvited guests coming from a distance, the Blood Clan and werewolf warriors from the nightclub walked quickly and surrounded the Blade warriors directly, with extreme dissatisfaction in their eyes. "Who are you? How dare you come here to play?" The werewolf warrior looked at the Blade warrior angrily. Because the nightclub basically does not accept outsiders, they can party all night. After the Blade warrior appeared, they were naturally very upset. "Blade, I came here to speak to your rulers." The Blade warrior didn't attack, but looked at the werewolf warrior word by word and said. For a moment, the atmosphere in the entire nightclub became serious. After knowing the identity of the Blade warrior, the warrior of the blood race immediately contacted Craven and informed him of the incident. 5 minutes later, Osborne Industries, in the shareholder's office. Crunch. Craven pushed open the door of the office and walked in. In the end, he found that Tang Tian was processing documents, and he looked very busy. Next to him, Serena was busy helping, while Deadpool stood aside and started working as a bodyguard, which was quite serious. "What's the matter?" Craven rushed in a panic. "What happened?" Tang Tian didn't even lift his eyelids, and continued to look at the document, not thinking that something big would happen. Because the Shield has basically acquiesced in his control of the vampires and werewolves, and it is basically impossible to find trouble, but a negotiation is needed to obtain a favorable status for the werewolves and vampires. "It's Blade. He broke into our nightclub and asked to see you." Craven didn't talk nonsense, simply explained his purpose, and waited for his boss's arrangement. "Very good, Craven, I'll be there in 10 minutes after you reply." Tang Tian waved his hand, motioning for Cleven to follow his request. After receiving the order, Cleven naturally went down obediently, leaving Tang Tian with a pensive face behind. "Boss, I've heard the name Blade Warrior. That guy is famous for his hatred and hatred. He has no mercy in destroying the blood race." Serena, who was the secretary, introduced the identity of the Blade Warrior, and said to Tang Tian with a vigilant expression. After all, Tang Tian completely controlled the Blood Clan and werewolves, and it was normal for him to be approached by the Blade Warrior. Fortunately, the Blade Warrior was also very sensible, and he didn't kill people randomly as soon as he came up, otherwise he would definitely be taught to be a man. You know, with the current strength of the vampires and werewolves, coupled with the state of no weakness, it is basically impossible for the Blade fighters to take advantage of it. "Well, I know. It's just as well if you come. I don't mind recruiting him." Tang Tian smiled lightly, walked outside, and called Deadpool to prepare the car, and decided to go to the nightclub together to have a good chat with the Blade Warrior. It didn't take long for Tang Tian to come to Yahui General Manager according to the agreed time. As soon as he walked inside, he found another cool man in a black leather jacket with sunglasses, staring him in the eyes. "You came." The Blade Warrior said something casually, and stared at Tang Tian carefully. "Of course, if you want to see me, then I will come naturally. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tang Tian, Blade Warrior. What do you want from me?" Tang Tian said slowly. He wanted to see the Blade fighters. Why did he come to him? "You have controlled these vampires and werewolves so that they don't go around destroying. I admire you very much, so I hope to join you." The Blade Warrior said sincerely. Instead of the arrogance just now, he raised his head and responded to him sincerely. "No way. Blade Warrior, are you sure you're not joking?" Hearing the words of the Blade Warrior, Tang Tian didn't know whether he was crazy or the world was crazy. The always rebellious Blade Warrior was willing to be his subordinate. "No, from the moment I was born, it was to destroy the blood race. I didn't expect that what I wanted to do was done by you, so I just turned to you. Do something valuable by the way." The Blade Warrior said without joking. Maybe in his opinion, this is the most correct choice for him, and it is also his own meaning. After understanding the meaning of the Blade Warrior, Tang Tian felt relieved, so in the end he decided to agree to the Blade Warrior's request. In his opinion, he was still in the process of building up his power. Could not have been a better choice. "All right then. From now on, follow me to fight crime. Become the guardian of the night." After accepting the Blade Warrior's joining, Tang Tian introduced him to the status quo of the blood race and the werewolf, as well as his own plan, which made the Blade Warrior extremely admired. Although the process is very complicated, the Blade Warrior is very aware of the danger of conquering the vampires and werewolves. He did not expect that the person he is willing to submit to has such courage. Now that the vampires and werewolves have been subdued, no one will be attacked at night again. These vampires and werewolves whose defects have been compensated by the perfect blood can survive only by eating normal food. Being able to reduce the crimes of the dark race was originally what the Blade fighters should do, but now that there was nothing to do, the Blade officially wanted to join Tang Tian's men. When the Blade warrior accidentally joined Tang Tian's subordinates, S.H.I.E.L.D. formulated a plan to facilitate the unified coordination of these dark races. Otherwise, without any rules, S.H.I.E.L.D. would definitely worry about Tang Tian's ambitions. And the purpose of the negotiation is naturally to restrain Tang Tian, otherwise, there will be a second merger in this world, which will make the situation in the United States more turbulent. This is also the daily operation of S.H.I.E.L.D. Early the next morning, Tang Tian had just woken up, and not long after washing, he received a call from the Black Widow, telling him that he would come to Osborne Industries to continue negotiations at noon. By the way, an agreement was reached with Tang Tian regarding the arrangement of blood clans and werewolves, as well as an agreement with Tang Tian for alliance. Soon, noon came, and Nick Fury also came to Osborne Industry as scheduled, and under the leadership of Lucian, he entered Tang Tian's office. As soon as he came here, Nick Fury felt a sense of sharpness and a hint of domineering, which made Nick Fury feel a little unbelievable. "Nice meeting, welcome here, Mr. Nick. Please sit down." Coming here, Tang Tian said to Nick Fury with a smile. Nick Fury was not polite, he sat on the chair directly, and looked at him. "Mr. Tang Tian, Ming people don't talk dark words. I came here to reach an agreement for you. That is, give me super fighters, and by the way, give me bottles of super fighter boosters, so that I can fight against you. Your vampires and werewolves are taking shelter." As soon as Nick Fury sat down, he put forward his own conditions without any hesitation. "No, you want too much, I can't give you that much. If you think so, then our negotiation will be terminated." Tang Tian shook his head, and rejected Nick Fury's request without hesitation. The S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau wanted to take advantage of him, so it's not that easy. Moreover, the S.H.I.E.L.D. itself asked him to investigate the issue of blood races and werewolves. He was able to own these two races because of his strength, so how could it be handed over to S.H.I.E.L.D.? Nick Fury on the side, hearing Tang Tian's response, was not surprised at all. Asking prices to pay back the money is also a daily operation of the negotiation, so they set the price very high at the beginning, just to get more benefits. After thinking about it, Nick Fury looked at Coulson on the side, and nodded slightly. The meaning is self-evident. After receiving the order, Coulson hurried over, looked at Tang Tian angrily, and said in a very dissatisfied tone, "Mr. Tang Tian, we don't think we have done too much. We are eliminating the first undead in the mission, we paid a lot of power, which can be said to be a loss of troops. In addition, we have to arrange legal identities for the vampires and werewolves, which will also consume a lot of our relationship network." "Oh, is it? I don't think so. If you find it difficult to arrange your identity, I can go to General Ross. I believe that General Ross will agree to any of my requests if I sell the same gene enhancer." Tang Tian shook his head. It was impossible for him to be intimidated by S.H.I.E.L.D., and he wasn't frightened too much. He would never be rounded and flattened by S.H.I.E.L.D. For a moment, the atmosphere became stiff, and the mutated Black Widow also knew that it was time for him to speak, so he hurriedly came in front of Tang Tian and looked at him gently. "Tang Tian, I think S.H.I.E.L.D. has paid a lot, at least it has helped you, so I hope you can make some concessions." The Black Widow came in front of Tang Tian, talked good things about S.H.I.E.L.D., and did not forget to wink at Tang Tian and resorted to a beauty trick. Looking at the appearance of the Black Widow, Tang Tian also knew that it was time to lower the price. He hesitated for a moment, then looked directly at Nick Fury, and said the price in his mind. "Okay then, I can give you 10 super soldiers and 50 bottles of genetic enhancers. What do you think? If you agree, promise me a few conditions by the way." Tang Tian smiled softly, directly lowered the price to the lowest, and said calmly, "No, at least 50 super soldiers and 100 bottles of gene enhancers, otherwise this agreement cannot be reached." Nick Fury shook his head seriously, feeling that this was not the price he wanted in his mind, so he naturally refused. "Make a deal." As if just waiting for this moment, after Nick Fury finished speaking, Tang Tian immediately agreed, making the expression of Nick Fury on the side become extraordinarily exciting, knowing that he had been cheated. Unfortunately, it's too late to say anything now, so Nick Fury stretched out his hand, and could only say in a helpless tone, "So happy to cooperate. There are more tasks in the future, and I need to talk to Mr. Tang Tian. What about cooperation?" "No problem, let me tell you about my conditions now." Tang Tian shook hands with Nick Fury. "I forgot to continue to fight for the rights of the vampires and werewolves, and he had already thought about it before Nick Fury arrived. "Please tell me, Mr. Tang Tian. I will do my best to help you achieve it," Nick Fury said indifferently. Since he already got the most valuable thing anyway, his mood has improved a lot. "The first point is that my super fighters, Bloods and Werewolves, in addition to those who work directly in S.H.I.E.L.D., I will let them assist the local police station to fight against those supervillains or criminals. Second point, you must guarantee the rights and interests of super soldiers, and prevent other organizations from investigating them or using them for experiments. The third point, if I do something bad, I hope you can bear with me and help me deal with those troubles." After Tang Tian said these three conditions, Nick Fury didn't have much expression on his face, but when he heard the third condition, his expression became a little weird. After thinking about it, the power Tang Tian now controls must be a big deal when he deals with it, so Nick Fury couldn't help but wanted to ask him what he wanted to do. "What do you want to do? With your strength, who else would dare to offend you?" Nick Fury frowned. He didn't know what this guy wanted to do, so he had a slight vigilance on his face. "Hee, it goes without saying, of course it's for revenge. Jin Bing and the Punisher were the hospital where I was lying down for a while, how could I not complete my revenge?" A cold expression appeared on Tang Tian's face, and a bit of murderous aura exuded from his whole body. "Don't mess around. New York City Emperor Gang also rules the dark area of human beings. If you fight, it may cause unexpected damage. At that time, the military may be mobilized in." Hearing Tang Tian's words, Nick Fury was extremely nervous. There was no need for Tang Tian to act recklessly, otherwise the result would be disastrous. "I know, don't worry. At most, just remind him and ask him to compensate me a little money. When I get angry, I will naturally let him go." Tang Tian's face was calm, as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him, and he showed no disturbance. Facing Tang Tian's answer, Nick Fury finally chose to agree. Anyway, as long as he didn't do too much, then he didn't bother to care so much. New York City, Manhattan, Hell's Kitchen. In a luxurious hotel, a man with triangular eyes, a fat body, a stern face, and a wolf-shaped tattoo on his chest, at first glance, looks like a very domineering man, lying on the hotel bed, enjoying the technician massage. Seems to feel that such a life is very comfortable. Jin Bin, whose real name is Wilson Grant Fisk, is Daredevil's #1 mortal enemy and the biggest dark world leader in New York and even the United States. At the same time, he is thoughtful, intelligent, and powerful. He can punch through a wall with his bare hands. He is also a world-class fighting master, and has the highest level of human combat power just like the Punisher. Established the largest gang in the United States, known as the Emperor Gang in New York City, and it is also the leading gang. Even S.H.I.E.L.D. is extremely afraid. During this period of time, Jin Bing lived a very comfortable life. He easily multiplied his property by more than 5 times, and he also recruited Bullseye to become his chief assassin. He lived a happy life. Except for a business that was ruined by the Punisher some time ago, Jin Bing hardly encountered any setbacks, and the journey went smoothly without any trouble. Suddenly, when Jin Bing was enjoying the Emperor's treatment, there were hurried footsteps outside. The footsteps seemed relatively orderly, which made Jin Bing's originally relaxed expression tense. Bullseye. After feeling something bad, Jin looked at his bodyguard with vigilance in his eyes. Hearing Jin Bing's words, Bullseye didn't hesitate, and went directly to the door, and looked carefully through the cat's eyes. As a result, Bullseye found 20 men in black suits dressed like waiters, holding pistols, and surrounded them step by step. "Be careful, boss, a killer has broken in," Bullseye said in surprise, and reminded Jin in a hurry. After hearing what Bullseye said, Jin didn't hesitate, and quickly opened the bottom of the bed and took out an M60. As the leader of the Emperor Gang in New York City, Jin Bing has a lot of heavy firepower prepared by his side at any time, and he can use it directly as long as there is a need. At this time, a tall black man outside stepped forward and kicked open the door, holding a gun, and rushed in immediately. When the rest of the people saw the door open, they also rushed in immediately, aiming 20 guns at the 2 target persons in the room. Da 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 da. But as soon as he rushed in, a burst of heavy machine gun fire swept across, and these attackers in black fell down like wheat. Only 3 people reacted, and with a loud roar, they turned into 3 black-skinned werewolves and rushed over again. Trouble. After discovering this scene, Bullseye didn't panic, and threw 2 throwing knives casually, which directly pierced the heads of the 2 werewolves, causing them to fall to the ground unwillingly, completely losing their vitality. As for the last assailant, Bullseye pierced his limbs with a throwing knife, grabbed his neck, knocked out his pistol, and kicked him fiercely in the air. Watching everything settle down, Jin Bing put down the M60 in his hand, picked up a glass of red wine, and walked up to the attacker step by step. "Who are you, dare to assassinate me?" After drinking the red wine in his hand, Jin Bin looked at this guy fiercely, wanting to see who dared to seek death and dared to provoke himself. Regarding Jin Bin's inquiry, the werewolf kept silent, stared at Jin Bin firmly, and said in a vicious tone, "Wait. This is just an appetizer, and the leader will find you soon." Crack. Just after he finished speaking harshly, Bullseye directly cut off his neck. Obviously he already knew some clues, but his expression was also extraordinarily solemn. "Bullseye, it looks like you've found out who the murderer is." Jin Bing asked curiously, wanting to ask who dared to attack him. Facing his boss's question, Bullseye hesitated for a moment, then looked directly at Jin Bin in front of him, and answered in an uncertain tone. "It should be a werewolf. The leader he talks about should be the recently famous Tang Tian." Bullseye said vigilantly, and by the way, told Jin Bin the exact identity of Tang Tian and the information he had obtained during this period, and described Tang Tian's danger. On the other side, after the operation failed, Lucian came to Tang Tian's private villa with an extremely gloomy expression, looking at his boss with apologetic expression. "Lucian, what's wrong? The mission must have failed." Looking at Lucian with an ugly face, Tang Tian naturally thought of this, so he asked without feeling surprised. "That's right, boss, that guy has capable people protecting him. So it's not easy for us to start. Do I need to shoot him again and be killed by my subordinates?" Lucian asked seriously, not quite like joking. "Forget it. This is just a reminder to him. We will come to visit him in person tomorrow. I think he may accept it." Tang Tian smiled confidently, and a mysterious expression crossed his face. "Okay then, next time I will definitely get my ass done." Lucian clenched his fist and left directly, obviously making some preparations. Ding. Trigger the mission, deal with gold and complete revenge, and reward the host with a chance to draw a lottery after success. After Lucian left, the voice of the system appeared in Tang Tian's mind, but it did not exceed his expectations. Since the attack on Jin Bin, the system has naturally issued tasks. Serena, who was next to her, saw Tang Tian's pensive expression, and looked at her boss curiously and asked, "Boss, Jin Bing has a huge gang. Now if we provoke him, it might damage our strength, powerful." Serena was extremely worried, feeling that they had just established their influence and shouldn't be so laborious. Hearing Serena's words, Tang Tian smiled lightly, and explained in a casual tone, "Don't worry, I know what to do. Offending him will only make us stronger. Besides, that guy made us stronger. I've been lying in the hospital for a long time, but I still can't remember it, so he won't make any compensation, and I will definitely not let him go." Immediately, Serena stopped talking. Anyway, Tang Tian talked about this, so naturally he wanted to show their strength, and let Jin Bing know who is the king of the night. Comparatively speaking, Tang Tian cared more about the chance of the lottery draw. As long as he got the chance of the lottery draw, his power would increase geometrically. This was the reason why Tang Tian wanted so hard to take revenge on the gold coins. In particular, power is everything in the Marvel world. As long as you have power, you are the maker of the rules, not the weak who obey the rules. New York City, where the Emperor gang is stationed, downstairs of a building. A black car stopped, and the door opened immediately. Tang Tian and Deadpool got out together, followed by his secretary Serena, and walked inside. Just after getting out of the car, a group of vicious gang members stood downstairs, pointing their black guns at Tang Tian and Deadpool, intending to shoot if there was any disagreement. Boy, what are you doing here? You belong to Boss Jin Bing, do you have any invitations? The leading black man with a scar said questioningly. No, but tell your boss that I paid him a visit yesterday. He will invite me in. Tang Tian said with a half smile. There was no trace of fear in his eyes, it was as simple as eating and drinking. Okay, I'll report, you wait here. The leading black man nodded, picked up the phone, and called Jin Bing directly to explain the situation. In less than a minute, the leading black man came over, with a playful expression on his face, and a hint of killing intent hidden in his eyes, smiling at them. Boss invites you in. He has already prepared things inside and decided to entertain you. The leading black man said with a smile, turned around and led the way. At the same time, he secretly sighed that these guys were unlucky and offended someone who shouldn't be offended. From Jin Bing's speaking attitude just now, he could feel the extreme dissatisfaction. Before, there was also a gang leader who made Jin Bing very unhappy. As a result, because he offended Jin Bing, even if he entered with his subordinates, he was tortured to the point of death. Obviously, if these people go in like this, the outcome may not be very good. It is hard to say whether they will survive. Afterwards, they took the elevator to the top floor, and after passing through a corridor, they came to the meeting room on the top floor with a huge space. It is worth mentioning that there are many weapons here, such as M41 and AK, which are like an arsenal, exuding bursts of cold air. In the room next to it, there were people counting banknotes, even diamonds, and even sorting out some colorful pills and packing them in batches. Needless to say, this is an important base of Jinbin, and it is also the center of Jinbin Kingdom, an important place representing his glory. Boss, he's inside, and he said he was taking care of you. He's in a good mood now and wants to chat with you. The leading black man looked at Tang Tian meaningfully with a ferocious smile on his face. That's great. It just so happens that I haven't visited some guests for a long time. I will definitely have a good chat with Mr. Jin Bin. Tang Tian didn't have the slightest expression on his face, he didn't take this matter to heart at all, and continued walking towards the inside. Finally, after going all the way, I finally came to a luxurious meeting room, where there are classical scrolls, as well as various armors and swords from the Middle Ages, which looks like a collector. At the same time, there is also a music box in the room, playing a crisp and loud sound. After entering the room, Tang Tian found a big fat man over 200 caddies, smoking a Cuban cigar, drinking red wine, sitting upright and looking at Tang Tian with a scrutinizing gaze. Behind him, a man wearing a blue mask with a target pattern stood aside coldly, neither speaking nor moving, like a sculpture. Bullseye. Seeing the man standing behind Jin Bing, Tang Tian didn't have any surprises on his face, as if he saw it completely, and didn't think there was anything wrong with the appearance of Bullseye. Immediately afterwards, the two of them didn't say anything, and the atmosphere became stalemate, only the sound of Jin Bing smoking, a slight noise. After 15 minutes, Jin Bin couldn't bear it anymore. He felt that the patience of the guy in front of him seemed to be better than he imagined, so he didn't hesitate anymore and decided to have a good talk with him. Tang Tian, a Chinese American, the third shareholder of Hanmer Military Industry, the second shareholder of Osborne Industries, the leader of the Blood Clan and Werewolves, am I right? Young man. Jin Bing told Tang Tian's details like a few treasures. It seemed that he had obtained a lot of information after careful investigation, so it was not surprising that he looked at Tang Tian. Hee, don't use such old-fashioned words to tell me that, in terms of influence, we are considered equal. What qualifications do you think you have? Tang Tianao did not back down, picked up the cigar on Jin Bing's table, and smoked it unceremoniously, causing the corner of Bullseye's mouth to twitch, and the murderous intent in his eyes became more intense. As the bodyguard who protected Jin for 5 years, Bullseye had hardly seen such an unceremonious guest, so he just looked at Tang Tian with a vigilant look. Bump. Facing Tang Tian's attitude, Jin Bin was very angry, knocked on the table suddenly, stood up with a swish, and looked at him with cold eyes. Young man, it's better not to be too complacent. I have been in control of New York City for decades, and my influence has long been entrenched. You dare to send someone over to assassinate me. Do you really think I dare not be angry? Jin Bing's tone was full of coldness, and he felt that this young man was a little too ungrateful, and he didn't say anything when he asked someone to come over to assassinate him, and his attitude was unusually arrogant. Maybe this is just a reminder. When you fought with the Punisher, you let me lie on the hospital bed for a month. I haven't settled the account for you yet. Tang Tian's face was calm, and he said with reason and evidence, which made Jin Bing's face stiff, as if he had thought of this matter. After all, the battle with the Punisher last time was so loud that even the Shield and the New York City military were completely alarmed. In order to deal with this trouble, Jin spent a lot of money to solve it. Questionable. As for the fact that Tang Tian was injured and sent to the hospital, there was still such a thing, but Jin didn't care too much, thinking that a small shareholder should not come here to make trouble for him. Hee, did you think about it? That's very good, so I don't have to say more. Then have you decided to pay the price? Offended me, you think you can just forget it so easily? Tang Tian said with a cold face, ignoring Jin Bing, whose expression had become more and more ugly, and continued talking to him, as if provoking him. Enough. Since you have come to my territory, you must obey my orders. I, Jin Bin, have never been threatened by anyone in my life. Come out and kill this nasty boy. Jin Bin roared, and with a loud roar, people appeared outside the conference room. With the sound of hurried footsteps, within 10 seconds, 50 punks with M41s immediately surrounded the entire conference room. The muzzle of the black hole was aimed at Tang Tian and the others, and a big battle was about to break out. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.